For Goethe. To our earthly spirits we must implore, why are your riddles shown with such splendor? If we be of two in kind, are we then separate, in the moments flashing in our heart's mind's eye?
As we wrestle nature's laws, we become unsure. Mortal fate imprisons us, doomed by our nature. Is it death, that final moment with which we know not knowing? Does what we know appear as jest in the final closing? Why would you not be there to show us what to know? Are you not telling us? Despair you not, although despair is but a longing given, we want to know it all. But don't we seem to thrive with the journey in its full? Is it not our longing that keeps us moving forth? Does it matter, if at all, the destination afoot? Is it not the dark unknown, the unseen that compels? As we strive towards light unknowing, this you show us well. Even if we do not follow, you will not relent. Ever present, ever knowing, you accept descent. It is in the light we see where image meets our eye, and we know that this is real, our senses come alive. Often treated as a thing we seem to only notice, the moment when suspended anticipates your performance. In our conscious, sublime arrives, and strivings unpossessed, our nature coincides with you and dances unsuppressed.
Your voice and song heralds us, secrets you keep singing, but we are just humans, this rarely sparks our hearing. We are busy with human things, thoughts, objects as such, then we hear you saying, what you do is of naught.
Your existence is but prior, and will continue further, but if not be the human, who will know you either? So why are we connected, and what does come of this? Are you in the darkness, and in the light exist? Although we never know what words to us you mean, of this it does not follow that there is no meaning. And if we do not hear you, we will not be bereft. The sublime, comprehended, reveals the moment yet. Your constancy appears to us alongside human folly. We oft become your conquerors, and yet we know as always, deep down is the villain, that of which we show. You do not belong to us, and cannot be controlled.
We cannot be but who we are, and you but you so true. The foe's not imagined foe, not you. Our teacher and our ally, your nourishment abounds. Beyond conditional promises, you are as profound. So as our striving ends, alas we do return. You are the home familiar, the one that never ends. The fear we attach to you is but our own image. This is our folly, this is your revenge.
Your response a reminder, to us the sublime, of which we want to name, explain, of which we categorize. You care not for this, aloof because you know how complicated that we are, and this is ours to choose.
The infinite eludes us, we comprehend in mind. It is our connected being that calls forth the divine. We struggle with saving ourselves from ourselves. We cannot hear you telling us, you are enough, as is. As you continue, we listen very close, and then we cry aloud, we want no remorse. My secrets all are not yet revealed. Keep on your journey, the necessary appears. Your realm is rightly suited, human though I fear. But no, I'll never leave your side, keep till the end is near. I may not show the same face twice, nor do what's similar, but I am constant as divine, and show myself familiar.
I ask not anything of you, I know your nature well, but I will remind you, please listen as I tell. The goal and the journey does unite in us as one. We share all the burden until we are withdrawn.
But as is your folly, in which your nature lies, for you will always err, more often than act divine. For me it is eternal, moments beyond your reach. For you it is the tragedy of knowing your defeat. The next is yet perceived, but cannot be known. But here I show perhaps a glimpse, as death becomes renewed. You shout your folly loud and clear, let me be forever. 'Tis too soon, don't let me die, not now, not ever.
In a moment's thought revealed, you know I show the real. You enter your modern age, call it what you will. But while this is happening, your ears begin to hear for I do reflect to you inside your realm of real.
We cannot be parted, no matter what you believe, and this is your folly, always already, this you see. You sense it all around you, you dance amongst my glory, you often cause much grief, but this is your folly.
You cannot be but who you are, I ask this not of you, but what you do will always end within my known home's view. And in this way I show yourself to you as human being, appearances aside, we are not things pure seeming. And though you often laugh at this, you know deep down it's true, that we belong together here in heart and mind and soul. It is the life within us each that does create the whole of this and that and these, whose moments comprise it all.
Comprehend a human realm without the air, the fire, the water and the earth so close, this appears so dire. For you are the only one who can realize me, and in this shared realm you know this to be.
If not in word or thought in kind, indeed in act we touch, the eminence we both require fulfills our lives as such. But this is the way it is and how it is to be, for we as one complete the whole, and this sets us free.
The light we share together is when the sun shines forth. It is the sun that shows myself and you that shows my worth. The moment comes and is sublime, reveals as untimely. The truth appears, oh how we speak, experience aligns.
As you unlock and search to find my secrets darkly hidden, to no avail, continue on, for this is your true nature. I do forgive your folly, I will continue on, to strive beside in glory, growth and decline.
Forever you will follow me around and try to grasp, arms upheld towards the sky, beseeching me at last. For this is what you do as you, but not I do as me, and if you do not understand, this is your folly.
We are not that different, but I would not know. Because of you I exist, for me you do as well. It is our communion, existence that grants, revealed to us in moments, as word and deed as act. Because you want to name me and cherish me this way, I will accept your folly, your being here now stays. But never know and do forget all that you think of me, because it is the moment known, revealed, in which we're freed. Without what I provide you, your telos would subsist. No higher understanding, you would not exist. It is I who saves you with potions and nourishment, but even still you'll not prevail, because I am cosmos.
This mightiest God thus expressed is what you call eternal, but in my realm I call the sun my God that is as vernal. That I share this with you as one who brings this forth. Without me, you'd be but lost, no compass, no gift.
You are offered freedom, but this you must retain, for it is easily lost and does not remain. I will stand with you, as this you will see, but first you must, as always, regain your memory. What separates us is what's known, but I am life as you, reflects to you yourself as such, the only life you do. This memory will bring you to you yourself indeed, but only when it's needed as necessity.
And so you see we are as one, for as without each other, to know is not nothing to know, we know not the other. But still I will be with you, even when perilous, forever in concentric realms that we experience.
I am not here for more divine expressed. I do not ask to understand our quest. For this is not the way with us, we just go hand in hand, for we are one united, in this realm, one stance.
And so you ask, am I divine? I answer, yes, 'tis so. You know this in awareness, as contemplation shows. There are many who agree, from ancient through all time, and so I ask you, search your soul, and you too will find.
Another question does appear, this paradox will show. Can you with true conviction say absolutely no?
Hi,
Hi.
you hear me? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I also changed my original plan. I was trying to write a play, but I realized I had to first attain a certain degree of clarity about Goethe and about German idealism. So that's what I've written about. And to do this, I used the works of well, not the whole works, but some information about a Swiss theologian, Hans Urs von Balthasar. And so, okay, this is what I wrote. It might be too long. I split it into 3 parts. Firstly, about a short paragraph about his life, and then his interpretation of German idealism, and the third part was his interpretation of Goethe's Faust. So if it gets too long, just have to stop me, or no, I'll skip to the end. So Hans Urs von Balthasar was a Swiss theologian. He lived from 1905 to 1988 and originally studied Germanistic, German literature, and philosophy in Vienna, and he gained a doctorate in Zurich. After that, he joined the Jesuits and was ordained a Catholic priest in 1936. His work was influential during the Second Vatican Council of the Catholic Church, but he didn't actually take part in it as he wasn't invited himself. He never held an academic position at a university. He was offered one but turned it down, but he became a prolific writer, with his work amounting to more than 90 books and 550 essays. He also founded a theological quarterly called Communio with Joseph Ratzinger, the former pope, and he also set up the community of St. John, Johannesgemeinschaft, for secular professionals with an interest in theology. Unusually for a Catholic priest, he also had a female muse, which could be relevant maybe for his interpretation of Faust. Adrian von Speyer, who was a married doctor and a Swiss mystic who had converted from Protestantism, whom he said inspired nearly all of his writing. Goethe was a major influence on his thinking, as was Friedrich Schiller. For von Balthasar, it was Schiller, with his emphasis on beauty, who had freed philosophical thinking from the abstract constraints of German idealism. Though he saw both he and Goethe as having grown out of this movement, they were actually its pinnacle. They had touched on something which had been missing from both the ancient philosophers and also from medieval scholasticism. Spinoza had had a point in starting with the immanent. Kant had criticized both the scholastics and the ancients, but had essentially ended up by emphasizing morality, which constituted no real advance over scholasticism. Modern philosophy, even the likes of Hegel and Bergson, had all subordinated the concrete individual to the general abstract idea and the system, i.e. they had not been faithful to the new idea of the individual, despite their claims to have done so. He also saw modern science as a continuation of this sort of systematic thinking. The actual cause for the modern devaluation of the individual, according to von Balthasar, has been the dissolution of the Thomistic principle of secondary causation, according to which God and the individual merge to create the independent essence of a created being, and to become one essence in God. The scholastics taught that life was knowable and understandable, and that responsibility for this shouldn't just be farmed out to a scientist or an expert or even a priest. Scholasticism was and is perceived as a system, but wasn't and isn't intended as such. In fact, it was designed to nurture the individual. Luther, too, failed to overcome this problem of systematic thinking, as did Kant, Schopenhauer, Hartmann. However, since the Christian idea of individuality has never been fully realized by the patristic scholastic tradition, nor by modernist thinking, he saw the possibility of it being realized not in the completion of a modern approach alone, but in the continuation of Philosophia Perennis. In other words, each individual Christian, and for that matter each individual person, is by nature charged with the task of developing their own philosophy or theology. And for von Balthasar, truth was an analogia entis. The human being must utilize the logos, Jesus Christ in his view, but always has to go beyond this in their own lives to create their own individualistic way of thinking. Truth is always somewhere between Augustine and Aquinas, or we might say on a secular level between Plato and Aristotle. Dogma is therefore not a hindrance to such individualistic thinking, but rather needs to be taken into account, researched, and a judgment formed, rather than it just being rejected outright. For von Balthasar, the myth of Prometheus in Goethe's poem Prometheus represents the Gestalt of German idealism. Prometheus was a poem he wrote in his youth, and he spent the rest of his life wrestling with its problem, trying to develop his own eschaton, having rejected the eschaton of revelation. Von Balthasar covers this in his book Apocalypse der deutschen Seele, Apocalypse of the German Soul, which is about German idealism. For von Balthasar, the Middle Ages were an era in which an eschatological unity prevailed. People were sure about their human telos, which they saw as having been set out in Revelation. Nonetheless, there were certain developments, such as the debate about whether or not the world was eternal, that pointed to later disintegration of the scholastic worldview. After the Reformation, the focus switched from a secondary world to an increasing focus on this world, which is the basis of human secularism, secular humanism, I should say, the Baroque and the Enlightenment. Luther's insistence on upholding the doctrine of his resurrection wasn't logical in the light of the rest of his thinking, according to von Balthasar. And natural science also has its roots in the medieval doctrine of the double truth, the dual world. As a result of the Reformation, the unity of faith and knowledge was dissolved, which resulted in a new language of the generally abstract. Natural science subsequently raised this to a schema of things in themselves, but this was originally just a means to an end in order to acquire a better understanding of the telos, rather than an end in itself. There is thus a distinct relation between the Protestant sola fide and the natural sciences, but this turns out to be a threat to individualism, not to nurture it, because science is more concerned with a super-individual spirituality, which is based on the generally abstract. During the 18th century, immanence finally won over transcendence completely. Von Balthasar says society cannot simply go back before this, but has to accept it. The discovery of the Weltinnenraum, the interior world space, is the major achievement of German idealism, and it finally dissolved the systematic worldview of the Middle Ages, even though it often turned against basic Christian principles in order to demarcate this space. As such, Goethe becomes for von Balthasar the portal to a new form of German idealism. It is he who encapsulates German idealism in its greatest actualization. There are two essential types of thinking in German idealism: mystical potentiality as an expression of a dialectical mysticism of idealism, and the Prometheus myth. One describes the form or problem of idealism, the other describes the same, but in the form of a myth, and this is where Goethe operates. Okay, I'll move on to what he said about Faust, because otherwise it'll get too long. For von Balthasar, Faust is crucial to analysis of Goethe because he worked on it for most of his life. Goethe, he maintains, occupies the center ground, with his objectivity located in the half-reality between idea and existence, while his subjectivity can be located in the half-reality between Gestalt and Gestaltung. So figure and creativity, I suppose, Gestaltung. Goethe's eschatology is one of world completion by the eros of yearning for the act, with love being a creative act formed from chaos. All this is borne out in Faust too. The main problem Mephisto has is the limitation of his perspective. As the spirit of the eternal horizontal, the Erdgeist, he can only perceive the negative side of this polarity and has no knowledge of the lofty, or in German, the Empor. If, however, the lofty is the immanent dynamism of beauty aesthetic, which is presumed in Goethe to be the centre of the world, then the person beholding this, having been satiated by astonishment, will ascend to the highest pole, which is the religious, says von Balthasar. In Faust, we see a yearning for verticality in his appreciation of beauty, which acts as a signpost to the heavenly. German classicism, therefore, in the eyes of von Balthasar, provides an insight into the basic rhythm of the Heilig öffentliches Geheimnis, the holy public secret within nature, which he equates with phenomenology, and it is in Goethe that the transition from the static to the dynamic takes place. From this, Goethe discerns the inner law of essence, the Wesensgesetz. But thereafter in Faust he still has to make a decision. If he selects an eschaton that is aesthetically immanent, this would move him closer to Plotinus, where the transition from the aesthetic to religious is only possible by going back to pure Anschauung. The alternative is religiously transcendent, which leads him to the phenomenon. For von Balthasar, despite moving away from theoretical, Goethe's thinking is nonetheless still excessively grounded in the abstract realm. Faust constitutes a walk through a deeper realm of Dasein, or existence, that cannot be projected using words alone. Von Balthasar uses Heidegger to convert Goethe's metaphysics into an ontology. Goethe is concerned with the Insein of Dasein, a divine monad in nature. Dasein can be split additionally into Wesen, that is above, Werden, or becoming, or eidos, and Wesen below, which is the scholastic essentia. To follow Faust's journey, therefore, ultimately means to determine Goethe's existentials. Two perspectives are crucial to this interpretation: the relationship of Faust to Mephisto, the human subject to the lofty or the empor, in his distinction between the pure and the impure, and the mit and Umwelt of Faust, the surrounding world and the world in which he participates. And this is the externalization of the Faust-Mephisto relationship. At the start of Faust expressly seeks the deeper realm of existence to which he is pointed by the inaccessibility of the theoretical. Da steh ich nun, ich armer Tor, and bin so klug als wie zuvor. And here, poor fool, with all my lore, I stand no wiser than before. The earth spirit mostly reveals its visible signs in magic and devotedness to nature, which turns out to be the eschaton of Faust's existentiality. When the macrocosm, the existential wholeness, evades him, which he will only succeed in attaining himself existential wholeness, Faust's limitation becomes apparent to him. According to von Balthasar, the earth spirit is the answer to Faust's nature yearning. Faust's subjective quest to understand nature remains concealed because the earth spirit constitutes a comparative, but he still lacks the superlative. And due to his essential polarity, the earth spirit has to reject Faust. Okay. Modesty or restraint would have led to some distance being created, which would have enabled him to recognize the truth. But to Faust, it appeared as a failure of what he was yearning for, so that due to his urges, a hefty fall from grace occurs, and he now yearns only for death. This continued Faustian yearning is interrupted by the singing at Easter time, and he is guided aloft by grace, because his contrary existence, which is still unformed wholeness, prevents him from accessing what his guide so urgently desires. Von Balthasar continues his analysis by saying Faust is a mixture of the pure and the impure, of the spiritual empor, the lofty. This prevents the impure from giving complete direction to the spiritual in a single moment, which likewise ultimately decides his fate. Called forth by the Easter singing and embarking on his Easter walk, according to von Balthasar, Faust is raised up by a yearning beyond the limitations of his subjective nature world in order to find a genuine new approach in an existential extension of wholeness. After becoming aware of this deep yearning during the Easter walk, which expresses itself in three Gestalten according to von Balthasar, the lark, the eagle, and the crane, he sees a very important sign when he says the following: two souls alas reside within my breast, and each withdraws from and repels its brother. One with tenacious organs holds in love and clinging lust the world in its embraces, the other strongly sweeps the dust above into the high ancestral spaces. The previously confused urges have now become a dual goal to be striven towards. Existential wholeness is from here on a duality. In his dual nature, Faust reaches his most central point from which thinking of Goethe can be understood most clearly, and the existential position with regard to this inner human law is for Goethe the eschaton of human existence rather than Christian eschatology. Okay. But von Balthasar, the extent to which this dual nature is unified is the actual criterion to which he aligns both his own thinking in his book The Apocalypse of the German Soul and German Idealism too. The unity that arises from this duality he calls mystic potentiality. The dual state he has attained is a contradiction, and the basic forces of Faust must be returned to the dimension of a sort superlative, which, however, now can only be understood as superhuman synthesis. Okay, I'll just summarize then, reach the end of what does get too long. I mean, basically, he's striving, but his striving is mixed up with the earthly striving, in which case it will always be impure, it will always lead to frustration for him, to no satisfaction, as Mick Jagger might say.
Isn't that the point, though? Isn't that the point?
Well, maybe, but that's just his analysis of it. Obviously, he's speaking from his own standpoint as a theologian. So Mephisto is the Geist, der stets verneint, the Geist which always negates, is concerned with the mirror inverse of the conversion of a pure impure into the impure. The empor of revelation is converted to a downwardness into the horizontal in Mephisto, and the polar empor of Faust therefore reveals itself once again as a dialectic. Yet words and language can only point to the actual secret of a phenomenon, like signs. Number is subordinated to dialectics, but also to words. Beyond these, complete philosophies can be discovered in every logical linguistic context, according to van Balthasar. Complete philosophies can be discovered since they are subordinated to this dialectic. So this dialectic of the horizontal and the vertical underlies all philosophies, and which is what Goethe is getting at. There is a deeper, separate meaning which lies behind and deeper than direct statements, and can also be understood as a gestalt. This way, the dialectic reveals its deeper truth. The reference to beyond in the dialectic already hints at the dynamic of becoming. This is decisive, according to van Balthasar, for the fate of Faust. How does Faust manage to dynamically live this empor together with a negative, in defiance of Mephisto? Goethe has always indicated how much Faust remains in the power of the earth spirit, so that the wager above all for him means the satisfaction of his essence-based empor, and hence the return to the realm of a nature-based subject. The apocalypse of this position of Faust is the Walpurgisnacht, according to van Balthasar, which shows the truth of a non-existential subjectivity to be a dream. Faust's insistence at remaining in the problematic in-between also leads Gretchen into the dream world of madness, the negative side of the earth spirit's potency, and yet her fate is different. While Faust has to continue to wander further in existence, she is rescued, since the naivety of her empor has had a different meaning from the outset. She was never striving for her own analogia entis. Okay, that was it.
Thank you, Andrew. If you have any questions for Andrew, please raise your digital hand, as it were. But doesn't Gretchen say, ich bin gerettet? I am saved when? I'm going to spotlight myself now too. When Faust returns to see her. Are you not forgetting that, Mr. Phantom?
So you're saying she's rescued by Faust?
By his love, yes. By their love, yes.
Love.
I know that you're a good Christian boy, but do you see?
Yeah, but she's.
You should.
I don't know what happens in the second part. I'm not ready yet.
No, you have read it because we've all read it.
Faust 2.
Nein. Ich meine, das jetzt von gerade eben, den ersten Teil, the first part.
No, I mean,
I just mentioned.
Faust 2, I don't know what happens. Well, she's rescued, yeah.
Yes, but by him.
By him, yeah.
Or by their love, rather.
Yeah, but we don't know if she's...
Which you also conveniently have neglected to mention.
But does she give up her Christianity or what? And just throw it in the bin?
Who hasn't? Who shouldn't? This is going to be a back and forth forever between us, I suppose. But I think, look, I think it's a very good presentation. But this, I think you have to put in there to make it, and acknowledge it, and then try and make your argument stronger. If you don't, then you're neglecting a significant moment. She says, "Ich bin gerettet." This voice from above, I understand that Christians will read this as this is the voice from God or heavenly choir, but that's not indicated. It doesn't say it's just a voice from above. It could be a Deus ex machina, something coming from the stage. It's not necessarily a Christian salvation story in the end.
Well, we don't know her, do we, really?
Well, I think we do. I think, but go on. Try and save yourself.
Well, if the Deus ex machina, then Goethe is acknowledging the need for a God, is he not? Well, or he might not be a Christian God.
Okay,
I don't know.
that's a nice try. Good.
Mm.
Okay. I'll let you off the hook. Anyone else? I like that the leaves are moving behind you.
All right.
Your forest, your clearing in which you live.
Yeah, I live in the middle of the woods, really.
But no Union Jack behind you this time. I wonder why.
No, it's around somewhere. Yeah, I've just moved the computer.
Oh,
There it is.
there it is. No, but so very good, very interesting stuff. Paul, I think, has got a question, but
Oh.
make it
Can you hear
stronger.
me?
One second, but do make it stronger by addressing that she says "Ich bin gerettet" when she sees him, Paul.
I just wanted to ask quickly, what was the particular book of von Balthasar's where he elaborates his interpretation of Faust?
It's called The Apocalypse of the German Soul.
Okay.
Apocalypse der deutschen Seele. I presume the English title is just a straight translation. I don't know.
Do you know if it's translated into English?
Yeah, I think so, because it's one of his major works.
Okay.
I think most of his major works have been translated, but a lot of the other stuff hasn't. But I think that has been translated.
So,
Oh, look, someone's found it. Yeah.
yes, Nicholas has just put it in the chat. Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. So let's have Donatiu next, who
Oh.
is named after what's your drink?
German wine. So,
Riesling.
I don't know. No, don't know much about wine. It's just very sour.
Well, then with the sour grapes, I'll remove myself because I think your essay, if it's still the same, is a good overview of the two main characters.
Yes, that's correct. So, shall we begin?
Yes.
The Striving Man and the Negating Devil. Part 1. The Melancholy of Faust. At the beginning of the play, we see a dissatisfied Faust, a man of great knowledge and prestige. He comes with all the necessary titles and has studied extensively all the relevant subjects of his time, and all of them have proven insufficient at best when it comes to know the one. The arche of all things always seems to be out of reach. Faust is named Magister. He has mastery over jurisprudence, which could only hope to give him an unsatisfactory and powerless connection to the past. As Mephistopheles would put it, when dissuading a young pupil to study, the law is an eternal sickness that is transmitted generationally, and a student of the law, even a magister, is a mere grandchild subject to the edicts of the dead. Faust is named Doctor. He is most renowned in his hometown for his mastery of medicine. Faust treated the people during the plague, and they are grateful to him and his father. But finds no satisfaction in this acknowledgement, since many of his patients did not survive. Furthermore, it might be that his treatment not only were inefficient, but the direct cause of their deaths. The plague and the high number of death put Faust in the Middle Ages. However, his shame and regret speaks of hidden characteristic of medicine that manifests in every age. Medicine cannot be only the benign and noble art of bringing the sick patients back to health and restore their well-being. It is an aggressive, gross, violent, and often deadly set of techniques. It requires to poison, to burn, and to cut the body at times. Not only does it bring great pain and horror, but it often lacks power and predictability. Faust himself is unsure how many people got well as a direct result of his practice. Many patients come to their doctors only to get all of the sudden worse and worse to die on their watch. Many on critical state cannot be treated until their condition improves, but it can only improve when they are treated. Such cases moving quickly beyond the doctor's capabilities, only to recover a sense of certainty and authority when they pronounce the death of the patient. To be an honest doctor means to feel an immense shame. The first and last disciplines that Faust mentions are philosophy and, with peculiar regret, theology. Even the pure theoretical study has brought him no fruits. He not only claims to not know enough, but that nothing can be known. At this point, the very beginning of the tragedy, Faust has exhausted all of his academic pursuits, and after a decade is in his old age, but surprisingly, he is not looking back and is not in a complete contemplative mood. Faust is not in the state of decadence, leaving behind higher pursuits and losing itself in a civilized self-reflection and philosophizing, as Spengler would characterize the cultures defined by a Faustian spirit. His radical rejection of all forms of knowledge does not signal the end of a decadent man losing his vitality. Faust quickly moves from different methods to obtain a deeper knowledge, even if it fails in quick succession, always brings forth something new and strives and errs over and over, even briefly returning to his philosophical and theological inclinations. He turns to magic, since he cannot gain knowledge by studying and thinking. He sees the opportunity to have knowledge delivered directly to him by summoning the spirit of the earth. Here, Faust wrongly expects to complete and direct unconcealment, forgetting that nature likes to hide herself. The spirit rejects Faust, pointing that he is not his equal, and therefore he cannot comprehend the spirit. Pure unconcealment is out of reach for a man. In a long lamentation, Faust mentions another way to attempt to unconceal nature. He refers to his instruments that mock him with his wheel and cogs. These instruments point to what at the time was the newest and most exciting path for knowledge, the scientific revolution guided by the hand of techniques. With new ways to access invisible realms of nature, and yet it already sees its limitations compared to their grandiose promises. Faust calls them the keys when he already was standing at the door, and yet nature refuses to remove her veil. This instrument might be a crude microscope made with a couple of polished glasses and a mirror to reflect light that shows for the first time an amoeba in a drop of water, or a highly advanced electronical digital microscope capable of rendering 3D images of silicon molecules. Both can make visible formerly invisible layers of the world, but will not reveal the nature of reality on their own. Faust, in his most extreme, and maybe by accident, takes the role of an ancient Greek philosopher, like Empedocles wanting to die in the pursuit of knowledge, expecting to ascend to the heavens. Not in defeat, but with still in his striving for something higher, expresses the wish to commit suicide. He longs to be part of the ether and be with the spheres, once again trying to have complete access to all this time instead of magic, a direct sacrifice. He makes use of his medical knowledge to concoct a potion, and only the noise of joyous communal celebration of Easter breaks his lethal intent. Faust, despite and maybe because of his isolation from the world, he finds great interest in gatherings and celebrations, both the Christian Easter and later the devilish night of Walpurgis. The last recourse before the wager with Mephistopheles is ironically going back briefly to his theological scripture, but with a particular plan in mind. Maybe because he was briefly reinvigorated by a dose of mundane town life, brings the Gospel of John with the purpose of translate the Greek text to his beloved German language. Even if Faust is not a medieval figure anymore, already post-Reformation, and his intellectual pursuits would not take the form of a scholastic, The choice to use his native everyday language instead of the more academic Latin points to what will be the conclusion of this exercise and makes an eloquent summary of all that he tries at the beginning of the play. Faust takes the first line, "In the beginning was Logos," and begins to figure out what that Logos could say to him. The translation is the word, is the first that he rejects, breaking with Lutheran tradition and conventional theology, but also by rejecting the word as something with primordial power, rejects the magic that he already found ineffective. The word does not contain the origin in itself. The second translation, "In the beginning was thought," but through by itself lacks any power of creation. And with this, Faust breaks with Neoplatonist notions of a world of ideas and any other metaphysics that abandons any fantasy of leaving the material world behind and join the ether. In the beginning was force. While closer to the natural world, this is still the illusion of an abstraction. This is scientific models bringing forward an image of the world, but not yet what is. His instruments have already failed him. Every step makes a translation that speaks to him. He takes it down from the most remote and abstract, even further, not only to the material world, but to the world of the everyday life, where he interacts directly and not only on ideas or models. The conclusion that is inevitable the moment Faust chooses the language he uses commonly, so he finally writes, "In the beginning was the act." Ironically, after all this process, Faust shows not only his insatiable striving, but his forgetfulness, abandoning the new meaning he brought forward as he hears the dog barking, showing why he needs his demonic companion. Part 2. The Intrigues of Mephistopheles. The devil, Mephisto, the Lord of Flies, Junker Satan, Herr Baron, Volant, all equally unimportant names now that we know that the word does not carry any particular power. He sometimes appears as the funny man in the prologue in the theater, persuading the idealist poet to not recluse himself and address the audience and giving a clue to his role. Mephistopheles formally appears in the prologue in heaven, after hearing from the archangel how wonderful and perfect are God and his creations, and denies the praises from the heavenly chorus. This brings forward a reaction from the Lord, who was indifferent to the monotonous praises of the archangels. He even hears that in the eyes of the devil he can't do anything right, at least on earth, asking if he has nothing more to mention, leading to the bet that brings Mephistopheles to Faust. Here we see the real purpose of Mephistopheles. He contradicts the Lord not to block him or to fight him. His taunts and negation put the play into motion, both in the theater sometimes and in the heaven, that before his appearance seems to be static, just an endless choir of praising angels. The exchange between the Lord and Mephisto also suggests that this version of the Lord is hiding something from us, even from his own angels. During the prologue, the Lord appears as the classical representation from a Christian perspective, always solemn, dignified, and fearsome. Yet Mephistopheles disarms him with a line in which he appears to be apologizing, but then exposes something new when he says, "I cannot speak in lofty words. My pathos would bring you to laughter if you hadn't lost the habit of laughing." First confessing to be a bit vulgar for officially divine tastes, but revealing that uh, revealing that he knew God when he still had a sense of humor. When What does it mean that God no longer laughs? Is this a different type of God, forced to take the role of the Christian God, or he is a more ancient God, or a new kind of God? Despite Mephistopheles' indiscretion, he continues to play along the biblical route. Here he recreates the similar bet the devil made with God in the book of Job. This time, instead of inflicting cruel punishment on a perfect servant to test the limit of his faith, he has to tempt and play along with an already imperfect servant. Not only he is already described as strange by Mephistopheles, the very first thing he does when he appears is to lament his studies of theology. At the end of the scene, the Lord exists and Mephistopheles goes back to insinuate God's hidden side, calling him a gentleman that speaks so humanly with the devil himself. When Mephisto makes his appearance to Faust, it's just after his daring translation of the Gospel of John, "In the beginning was the act." And yet, despite all the striving to arrive At that, he immediately forgets about it. He sees Mephisto, and the first thing he does is demand his name, as if his word would give him any clarity. Here, Mephisto takes Faust's efforts more seriously than Faust himself, and shows it by mocking him. It reminds me of how just a moment ago he dismissed the importance of the word, and how now he asks that what is supposed to be a small question to him. Faust yet does not understand and throws all superstitious names: Beelzebub, Destroyer, Father of Lies. Mephisto follows the path drawn by Faust's translation and tells him who he is by what he does, a part of that power which always wills the bad and always works the good. And finally, I am the spirit that always negates. After that encounter and no more clarifications are needed, Mephisto acts as a servant to Faust. First, negation a little more hesitant to drink the witch's potion because of its flames, he has to be reminded that he already speaks with the devil of do and do, which can be maybe should be translated as being on first name basis with the devil. Um, Mephisto aids Faust in the conquest of Gretchen. Even if she is too pure for the devil, he brings beautiful jewelry to win her over. But Mephisto does not provide the item that brings Gretchen's downfall. The potion that kills Gretchen's mother is not some concoction of a witch's cauldron, but the formula of Faust, the renowned doctor. Mephisto negates, but cannot destroy, even if he wants to. Mephisto is always, even if a weak element on its own, what is needed to make the completion of the Lord's designs and the life of Faust. He brings creation out of its stagnation and gives Faust the capacity to pursue his strivings beyond what has already been established. Instead of dying an incomplete and exhausted, he is capable of remaining in motion, trying to give form to his new reality. The Faustian man on his own can only go in circles, forgetting what he brings forward, jumping from path to path. Without the power of the Mephistophelian spirit to accompany it and force it to actualize itself through negation and to power its designs, Faust would be indistinguishable from his colleague Wagner, who is just interested in knowledge for its profitability. Even if Faust has deeper aspirations than mere profit, he would be stuck in the realm of superficial interest next to his friend. Faust is the spirit that always strives. To open a clear path, he needs the mocking spirit that negates to finally encounter among all the events, triumphs, and disgraces the moments of lovely that should linger. And that's it.
That is it.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. So if you have a question, it's really excellent. If anyone has a question, raise your digital hands now, please. Or just start talking. I would just say, as everyone gathers their thoughts, if you could, if you continue writing on this, because you mentioned Job, the obvious reference. Maybe I just spotlight myself, whereas it's just a voice speaking out of nowhere. So that God in Job is, if you read this soberly with some distance, rather satanic, devilish. And you mentioned the limits of faiths that are being tested, well, interesting kind of faith here. But what's remarkable is that this God of which Goethe speaks does not demand faith. And Faust himself says explicitly, allein mir fehlt der Glaube. I lack the faith. And God does not make a further appearance. So maybe if you could, not now, but you could speak to this now. But once you continue writing on this and completing this essay, which I think is actually complete already, but that's maybe one avenue more to pursue. So feel free to add anything to this, anything else.
Well, I guess it adds to this that the idea that this God is just playing a character himself. He's not the God of the Old Testament, you know. So he has to put this framework, this scenario of, okay, let's pretend that Faust is like Job, but he's not really interested in doing a test of fate like he would do in the Bible.
Really good writing. Very perceptive. Does anyone have a question? I'll give you all a minute to gather your thoughts.
Here Marin says pharmacology reigns even love. I don't know what that means.
I have no idea. Pharmacology, perhaps. Marin, why don't you?
Sorry, bad joke. I just all through the piece you have he wants to poison himself. He's a pharmacist, I guess, or an alchemist at least. I just figured all the way to the end. There's a theme of pharmacon, I guess, or pharmacology of some sort. I don't know.
Well, yeah, of throughout of maybe also the modern medicine, but go on to not you.
Oh, no. No, I mean, the writing of it, I cultivated certain resentment of medicine and psychology for certain reason. Not go into it, but yeah, I definitely was rather disillusioned with that discipline as much as Faust was.
Haven't we just lived through a period where the world became a hospital? Where everyone was everyone else's nurse? Put on your mask.
Right.
Keep your distance. 1 meter and the virus can't spread. We all perform this ritual. I mean, now you can say this on YouTube. Tried doing this for 3 years ago and you could ban for it. It's something invisible that creeps up all of a sudden. Everyone is shit scared at home. In the most last man pandemic you could ever imagine, everyone crawled up watching Netflix. No sense of the tragic. I don't know if anyone saw this of you 5 years ago. I believe that this could be a moment when the tragic element returns into it, and it didn't. Of course it didn't. I had a conversation with a Nietzschean friend of mine. He said, you're out of your mind. This is not going to lead to anything. Just going to lead to the last man being more of a last man. And he was right. You see, hope is always a poor man's bread. Turn out to you if you want to add anything.
That would be all.
Oh boy. Okay. Donati, this was excellent. I look forward to reading the final one. And I think what we should do with every single one of them, you should start publishing your stuff anyways yourself on the Substack or anywhere else. And also then maybe send me a recording of it. So next will be, I think, Dr. James Simkin, who is not going to talk about drones.
For a change.
And what's your drink?
A Theakson's Old Peculiar.
What might that be?
It's a stout.
A stout.
Yeah.
From Yorkshire?
Yes.
Good.
Of course.
Well, the best they could cover up on is a Pinot Noir from, and I didn't see it's from Australia, but it's not that bad. It's not quite as good as the first one, which was a Buio. Casa Mesa from Sardinia, they make 2 or 3 wines only, and one of them is called Buio, which means dark. You have an Italian wife, James, and the other one is called Buio, which means very dark. So this is already dark, but if you want a very dark, you get the Buio. Okay, James, the floor is yours. I'll shut up.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So I've just titled mine From Greta to Margarita. So, in a nice bit of serendipity, it just so happened that shortly before reading of Faust, I had started reading The Master and Margarita by the Russian author Mikhail Bulgakov. Reading these books in tandem, I quickly noticed several thematic similarities between the two, and I wanted to explore whether they were intentional. As I read around the books, it became clear that Bulgakov had indeed taken a strong inspiration from Faust, and in today's talk, I wanted to contrast Faust's Gretchen with Bulgakov's Margarita, as though they were observing each other from opposite sides of the looking glass, with Faust as a portal to modernity. I'll first begin by introducing what the Master and Margarita is about and its general similarities with Faust, before exploring the differences between Goethe's Gretchen and Bulgakov's Margarita in their response to the devil's bargain and what this means for modernity. Needless to say, there are spoilers aplenty. The Master and Margarita by the Russian author Mikhail Bulgakov is a darkly comedic work of magical realism with horror elements. The book is a play on the old saying that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. In The Master and Margarita, the devil, named Woland, aka Wotan, aka Satan, and his entourage appear in Stalin's Moscow. Not so much to stir up trouble in and of themselves, but to see what all the fuss is about in this country where people supposedly no longer believe in the devil anymore. However, upon visiting Moscow, Woland is bemused. It seems that people behave in much the same way, lying, stealing, cheating, as they did when they believed in him. Woland also wants to meet the Master, an unnamed author currently ensconced in a psychiatric institution by the Soviet authorities due to his penchant for writing samizdat literature. In this case, a dramatization of the trial and execution of Jesus Christ told from Pontius Pilate's perspective. In a tour de force of Bulgakov's writing, the Master's book on Jesus' trial and execution by Pilate, a book within a book, is written in a completely different style and tone, with much more seriousness and gravitas than the dark slapstick of the Master and Margarita itself. Although the portrayal of Jesus is somewhat ambiguous in the Master's version of events, appearing less as a supernatural figure and more as a radical moral presence who refuses to condemn people by arguing, rather Socratically, that evil is a result of some kind of privation rather than inherent badness. This is apparently still a step too far for the Soviet authorities, who are trying to push the idea that Jesus never existed at all. Woland is intrigued to meet the Master because Woland claims to have been personally present at Jesus' trial with Pilate, observing these events in the small of a small black bird, and he wants to see how well the Master's versions of events match up. The Master and Margarita contains many nods and callbacks to Faust, not least because it is prefaced by Mephisto's famous line, "I am part of the force that always wills evil but always does good," and, of course, due to its very title, in which Margarita does indeed draw on Gretchen, Gretchen being a diminutive of Margarita, although they are not the same person, somehow reconstituted in a more modern setting. Another uncanny similarity between Goethe's Faust and Bulgakov's Master and Margarita is that they were both completed over many decades, Goethe taking decades of rewriting, whereas Bulgakov's Margarita, begun in the 1920s, was only published posthumously in the late 1960s due to Soviet censorship. Bulgakov's Woland, who appears as an inordinately tall and thin man with one green and one black eye, also carries a cane with a silver poodle's head on top, a nod to the black dog that follows Faust home. Furthermore, in Faust's Walpurgis night scene, Mephisto even refers to himself as Woland, imploring the other revelers to move out of his way. "Give ground, Sir Woland comes, sweet folk give ground," he implores. But just as we know that Mephisto is not the devil himself, but a kind of sub-demon, a kind of trickster demon, perhaps manifesting the spirit of ironical cynicism, Woland is not exactly analogous to Mephisto, who is more akin to a member of Woland's entourage called Behemoth, a large, black, gun-toting, talking cat. Towards the end of the book, Behemoth transforms back into his true human form, revealing that he who had been a cat, entertaining the Prince of Darkness, now turned out to be a slim youth, a demon page, the best jester the world has ever seen. Woland, Behemoth, and the rest of the Devil's crew also play a sort of positive role as agents of moral reckoning, and that they hold people to account for their failings by enabling them to bring about their own downfall. In particular, they hone in on greed and moral cowardice, particularly around the scarcity of adequate housing in 1930s Moscow, that leads several Muscovites to dob each other into the authorities in order that their neighbours are disappeared and they can move into the vacated apartments. The authorities themselves in The Master and Margarita behave very much like the rationalist in the Walpurgis Night scene in Faust. They simply cannot believe any of the testimony being recounted to them about talking cats and the devil abroad in the streets of Moscow. And consequently, as the book unfolds and Woland's gang rampage through the city, hundreds of Muscovites end up in psychiatric wards subject to the liquid kosh. Rationalism becomes a kind of blindness. But what of the Margarita character in their book and her relation to Goethe's Gretchen? Before the events with Woland start to take place, Margarita and the Master have already met by chance in the street one spring day and instantly fell in love and began an illicit love affair together. Margarita finds herself in this position not out of lust, but because her actual marriage is a sterile and loveless one, and she loves the Master for his willingness to sacrifice material comforts to passionately pursue his creative spirit. It is through Woland's interest in the Master and his book on Pontius Pilate that he takes an interest in Margarita. Mesmerized by her passionate longing for the Master, she does not know where he's been disappeared to. Woland sends another of his entourage, Azazello, to her with an invite for the witch's ball he is about to throw on none other than Walpurgis Night. Grasping at straws and sensing the supernatural portent of the invite, Margarita decides to attend as a last-ditch effort to somehow be reunited with the Master through magical means. Turning up at the witch's ball, Margarita gets in Woland's good books, so to speak, by agreeing to become the host, the Queen of Hell for an evening. She seals her contract with Woland by being doused in blood, very Carrie-esque. Although, as was mentioned, even though Margarita and Gretchen may share an etymological link, they are not the same person, Margarita does meet another Gretchen-like character at the witch's ball. Frida, a young woman who is in a perpetual state of torment in hell for eternity, because every morning when she wakes up she finds a handkerchief on her pillow, which she used to smother her own baby, who it's implied was born out of wedlock. And so it is Margarita's meeting with Frida that finally seals her approval with Woland. After hosting the witch's ball with such aplomb, although wide-eyed in terror, Margarita manages to keep herself together for the evening. Woland offers to grant Margarita a wish of anything she'd like. But instead of immediately wishing for her own fulfillment, Margarita asks Woland to free Frida from her torment. One of the powers Woland has is the power to annihilate you, to snap you out of being. You cease to exist in the earthly or supernatural realms, but at least you're at peace. And so, impressed by Margarita's selflessness towards Frida, Woland declares that has already been taken care of, and Frida disappears. As a reward for a good deed, Woland offers Margarita a second wish, and it is this point that she wishes to be reunited with the Master in annihilation, where they can be at peace for eternity. A wish Woland finally grants. Coming to the last bit now. And it is with this ending, with well over 100 years between the publication of Faust and the Master and Margarita, with the Faustian spirit of modernity now in full bloom, where we see that Mephisto's wager was a portal to modernity, a portal between Gretchen and Margarita, between the Christian and post-Christian. Representing tradition, Gretchen seems pious and chaste, and reluctant to express her love and desire for Faust. This is why she sadly kills her baby out of shame at an out-of-wedlock birth. Whereas representing modernity, Margarita has agency and she acts. She breaks out of a loveless marriage and actively engages with Woland by agreeing to be his witch queen for the night in order to be reunited with the Master forever. Margarita falls, but in a sense falls upwards. Margarita commits adultery, not out of lust, but out of the search for love. Whereas Gretchen relies on God's grace and is punished, Margarita stands before Satan without flinching. Can the escape from a loveless marriage in pursuit of love with another person be a good enough reason to commit adultery? It is sometimes said that to be trapped in a loveless marriage is one of the loneliest places a person can be. These moral ambiguities are part of the moral landscape of modernity, where we are freer than ever, but we have no real handrails to guide us. Whatever our own feelings on Margarita's choice might be, they represent the Faustian bargain of modernity. The ability to break free from tradition, from convention, the ability to act in pursuit of your own desires, but at the risk of annihilation. The end.
Excellent. Really good.
Thank you.
I think Marin has a question. Marin.
Hey, James. So yeah,
Marin.
that was great. I've heard about the book. I never read it, so that's awesome to see that it's that well connected. And you had mentioned that before in previous meetings. But how for you, how did Walpurgis Night figure into it? You know, I feel like there was a lot more to it since that's featured in the same celebration is featured in the book. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you mean more about the connection of what happens in The Master and Margarita, or the connection between Walpurgis Night in both works?
Yeah, so I guess because I think Walpurgis Night is used in both works for a purpose. I mean, there's a lot in there, with Goethe for sure. Yeah. But I haven't read The Master and Margarita, so I just wanted to hear what you had to say about how it was used in that book.
Yeah, well, it certainly comes across as a lot darker in The Master and Margarita. In Faust's in Faust, it seems, you know, it's kind of this diabolical get together, but it's all kind of raucous, and there's a lot of, you know, hilarity going on. Whereas in The Master and Margarita, that's probably one of the darkest scenes in the book, in which Margarita is invited to this ball and serves as the host of the ball, and it's this absolute demonstration of, you know, Woland's power. He's got all these souls in there that some of them he's picked out because he likes them. They've become part of his entourage. Some of them are kind of figures from history who are particularly evil, sort of evil Roman emperors or something like that, or various people from antiquity, but also just kind of people like Frida who he's got. And yeah, they're kind of alive and exist, so to speak, but they are constantly reminded and punished for this thing that they've done. And as I say, he has this power to annihilate people. So it's not something positive, but it's kind of that radical freedom to choose that Margarita enacts. If that makes any sense.
And she doesn't need to be in marriage to regain her freedom, right?
No.
Because I've not read Bulgakov, but, you know, as a Hegelian, which I'm not, but a Hegelian would say a woman has to lose her freedom by marrying, and then regains her freedom and actually becomes fully free only thanks to marriage. But Bulgakov would obviously totally disagree with that.
Yes, because the whole point is the Master and Margarita, you know, they're sort of reunited in this annihilation, and they're obviously not married. They're together. They love each other very much, but
so in a sense, Bulgakov goes much further also than Goethe, and allows for more evil, let's say, to run its course.
Yeah, although he, you know, what reading around it, one of the things which Bulgakov was really writing about was he hated sort of moral cowardice. So there's a lot of this. This is why Woland is impressed by what Margarita does in saying, "Can you release Frida?" Because, you know, he gives her this wish, and she doesn't know she's going to have another wish.
Yeah,
but she chooses to do it for someone else.
Right. Okay.
So Woland, you know, he absolutely gets people and will let people fall on their own sword, but there is a kind of morality to it, if you like.
Well, I think what you should do, as you go over this again, is in both instances, Goethe and Bulgakov, is allow for that which is only fragmentary and doesn't ultimately make sense more. We like to talk so much about post-modernity and overcoming post-modernity, blah, blah, blah. We haven't even begun to be modern yet. Because all this talk about the loss of the meta-narrative is itself a meta-narrative. Now, what it means to be modern and to lean into this fully, I would say, if you want to have a formula for it, is utter senselessness. And I said this many, many years ago in an interview. I said there's no awakening from the meaning crisis. There is an awakening to the meaning crisis. That's what we need. So what I'm saying with this is we haven't even begun to be nihilistic yet. We haven't even begun to appreciate the complete senselessness of existence. And we're looking for cop-outs, and Hölderlin talks about the gods and the sacred and Heidegger too, blah, blah, blah. But what if it's all just mess? What if this is what needs to happen first for something radically new to be born in the first place? So that because you read this in terms of an analogy. An analogy is Gleichnis. And if you remember from the last lecture, Nietzsche says das ist ein Dichtererschleichnis. It's how the poet lied to himself. By analogy, at least history makes sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense. And because you were getting at this, and there was this moment, again, I haven't read Bulgakov, but they end up in a madhouse.
The master is, he's been put there because of his works, which the Soviet authorities aren't happy with. But then the Margarita is taken to the madhouse, so to speak, to visit him. Yes,
the madhouse scene. I think that needs to be even. That's the madhouse scene in the Walpurgis Night. Mm-hmm. It's all, to quote our colleague Nicholas Cloud again, a cacophony of voices. Like all of our seminars, James, as you know. Thomas isn't here tonight, but he mentioned the Frankfurt production of this year ends in where Goethe didn't go, and just again a cacophony of the voices of modernity, which is various codes. And I think that I would like to see pushed more, but that's just my personal taste, perhaps. But I think this is really important work, and dare I say, one of your best contributions so far. So I would really hope that you maybe work on this a bit more, and then publish it. And everyone has to remind you in a few weeks from now that I try and you send me everything, everyone, and then we'll try and put this all together. I think it's good to have this as a collection. As you know, I always sometimes I forget, but so very good. If anyone has a question, if not, we go to Michael. Anyone else who wants to say something, even just a comment to James, feel free to speak now before we go to Michael, who is going to present anyone? No? Okay. Well, Dr. Simkin, thank you so much, as always.
Thank you very much, everyone. Johannes, cheers.
So, Michael, I think I have made you co-host, haven't I?
Sorry, my connection.
That's fine.
So you have to do it again, I think.
Okay, sorry. You are now co-host, so you should be able to see this green button at the bottom that says share.
Okay. Great.
So there's an arrow.
Yes, I see it. Thank you. All right, so just a brief preface to this. It's a bit of a ragu, like as the prologue in Faust mentioned. And it's so
it's a Michael ragu, and I have to say Michael is a very good cook.
Oh, thank you. Bolognese. But
Yeah, so it's a lot of like stuff from Faust. Also, I try to incorporate some philosophy, like Schelling, and it's quite elusive, I guess. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And it's a bit of fan fiction between Faust Part One and Two. So there's an introductory poem, and then it leads into the uh end of Part One. So all right, and the audio mixing might not be very good, so please signal or something if it doesn't sound right. And here we go.
Sorry, Michael, are we supposed to hear audio now?
Oh yes. So I
Just pause it, pause it.
didn't share.
Go back.
Uh, oh yes, yes. I should know this because I also
I've
have
never,
to.
I only managed to do this for the first time today myself. So I think there's one
Yeah.
button that you have to hit, which is share sound, which is hidden somewhere. They make it so complicated now. I don't know why.
Oh, I got it.
You got it?
All right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. So let's restart. Spring forth, fair spirits of the twilight bloom, by evening land and undiscovered country. Athena's arms still brace the sun at bay against the static harmony of grief, last luxury of human suffering. Shall you absolve the all of everything? What primal deed and tedious afterthought? Let Hades' abacus be no account in glimpses of a dim arrested past, as infants scarce a moment long return from flesh to fire, so unborn, so judgment flees before the world until its end. Yet now the overflow is opportune, to rise, to reach, to plunge, to seal the breach, betide what will and wade with wide-eyed night, as blessed the drowned, debased the safe of shore. In joining waters winding high and low, let tearing torrents warble as they waste. Such is to think the good in tragedy, to see the tragic ever in the good. For as the act of thought obscures itself, injustice gathers everything and nothing, in futures fecund for the fruit of fire, where sense and spirit scrying eye to eye, behold in memory and oblivion the human truth that dares divine descent, to wager forth the workings of the world. Oh, crude concoction of what is and seems, flow on as mortals wake your worlding wheel, to grind each fleeting god to soil shining, equal to eternal fantasy.
To me, Herr Doctor, do not dally. Our steeds are hale and hungry for the dawn.
What pushes on? Not I. My will I left behind within that blessed cell of love. Wretched Faust, how changed again you are! Shall you hold nothing fast but morning dew?
Heinrich, feckless Epimetheus.
Speak not my name, foul creature mangled maid. Her lasting words be cursed upon your lips.
I must. You are no more that Faust of old, but born again, as even now the sun arises from the night it burns away.
Oh, I would too the day, and spare myself from histrionic's mocking of its light.
Spare me instead, you Christian hypocrite. Whose innards churned and chafed to chase across these vaulted streams its ochreous chariot? Who vied to drink its sinking light forever, and to eat the ether? Is he dead or sleeping?
He never was, for now I do negate not just the past, but all the future too.
You deign to be a devil by despair?
How can what wished to never be born again? What from the first reneges it all before experience? I, birthed at the barren breast that suckled still this straining mouse, these groping hands. Alas, my mother freed herself instead of me, this fallen, crooked timber of a man. Oh, had I never been to split your sphere, Gretchen, what beauteous life awaited you!
What flights of fancy, welded to the wind? You must negate the future that you live. Negation knots the nothing it resolves. Man errs ever, even as he dies. Who begged to bare his breast to fit the future? Who cursed the grace of love in its salvation? Horrid happiness in rapturous despair, who asked for such unmeted vacillation? Have I not given all to which you pledged, your prideful, feeble form so fickle now, that you should shirk the promised pain, although a droplet of the ocean, and exalt the extirpation of the name of action? Condemn it all, that little harpy too.
I dare not, for here I cannot stand. Take me to her. You must have a way. The afterlife is your domain, even for the saved.
She was not saved.
Did you not hear the voice resounding from above, from God?
That was no god, save out a mad machine, confused contraption fashioned of the time, whose force one day shall outpace even mine, and operated by some daft director, slave to hope and expectation, bound to reconcile the spirit of the people, ballast of the battle of the gods.
Is your guile so spent that now you stoop to drivel? Listen, take me from this life-exhausted earth to plains beyond, where now my angel dwells.
Who told me he cared nothing for the yonder, that earth was source of all his sacred joys? Beware, once arrived I'll have no power there. How shall you strive without my charity?
I'll find a way. Now go.
Grab on my cloak. Now take this yellowed stick and hold it high. I take my chthonic form to be your guide.
And shall we pass through horn or ivory?
In with horn and out with ivory. In with ivory and out with horn. It makes no difference where the lie is born.
And what of pearl?
No substance rent from flesh shall garner truth. Now go before it closes.
Even here, crude nature's culture nurtures to negate abounding forms apparent to the eye. From twig to branch, coliferous, though bleak, and bud to blazing leaf, though weakened, wick the midnight sun into a brighter flame. And there, what wavering forms do still persist? Onward, kings of men cursed from repose. What water, fruit, or rock contain your soul? Yet strive and vie, confound what force denies.
What treasures lurk within these gloomy tombs? Gold and gems shine brighter in the shade. Look, the jewels the priest snatched from your lady fair.
Yet where is she? Where is she? Oh, Gretchen, if you would be, but how changed from her who in the happy realms of light, yet now withal still radiant as before. Though, were you not saved? I heard proclaimed on high, How comes it then that you are out of heaven?
Why, this is heaven, nor am I out of it. This perfect firmament of grey and grey, at striving's end, my restful heart and God.
But what gore-drenched gash drips round your neck? A drip. Is this become the necklace of my lust? I cannot bear the pain.
Then look away. There is no more for you to do or say.
Oh, do not rush so from my sight. I pray, if there was love between us, stay. If once you loved me for a moment true, then pity me awhile with your presence. Must you set your sight on this dark ground, and not decant my tears that shimmer to your eyes, and yearn against your hardened heart? I sought the gift of love, though ignorant of truth.
Heinrich, even now a shade I shudder at you and your ill-chosen company.
I could not else than burden my frail form to well behold our passions fair and true.
Yet not fair enough to hold you in return. You would not die along my side, so now you come as living. You would lie with me in life, yet not in death, despite your word.
Cursed, I rue this deed 1,000-fold, which in my breast eternal memory holds. Remembrance past, remembrance yet to come. Our love that bound the inmost folds of time. Each separate sphere a borning from the other. Youth and yammer, calm and clamour, pact and passion, worship and the wager, striving with surrender hand in hand, as doubt with dogma, so too in resolve, renunciation, rude and ruination. Would that we had hearts to hold it all.
Even now a windbag is before, and so a worm entwines entelechies. Forget me not, your martyring voyeur.
A cur that drew me from your pleading side.
So to the grave you left me, as I knew you loved me not unto my windowed world, a cosmos destined for the slaughter bench. Yet how could I deny love's blossoming, or choke its freely self-effusing spring, until such godly snares subdued its course, and human furies drove it beneath the earth? Had I come with you on that fateful night, I would have been no more the Gretchen who you knew, and who knew you, as even now my love surpasses life itself for you, and all what else the devil can negate. Beyond the restless vision that you seek, I bring our love into eternity.
Hello, Michael. Thank you. Excellent. Tell us, you wrote this? Oh, yeah. I think you're muted for some reason.
Sorry. Yeah.
Well, then tell us more. It doesn't sound as anything that would be written in the 21st century, so.
Well, I'm a bit old-fashioned, I guess. Yeah, sorry if it was hard to hear. I didn't have much time to like optimize anything, but this is like the first part of this little mini scene I wanted to write because I felt I was really troubled by the shift from Faust 1 to 2, and it didn't seem like, well, I guess it wasn't supposed to be like a chronological transition or anything like that. It's more thematic, but I wanted to kind of write something to bridge it, the two parts, and I had the idea that Faust and Mephistopheles would visit the underworld where Gretchen is.
Do the work that Goethe didn't.
Well, I'm sure he had good reason not to. I don't know.
Or maybe he just couldn't.
Huh.
Well, okay, why do you think that's missing then, though? What you wrote? If you want to be that arrogant.
Yes. I don't know. I guess I didn't think it was important enough. But I really don't know because the Faust
There's-
and part. Sorry, if anybody else has an idea, please
Yeah.
also jump in.
So I
I'm
think
just gonna-
James. Yeah, sorry, is that Paul?
Yes, I was just going to say, there's
Yeah.
so many versions of Faust already. Goethe is interpolating his work into earlier versions of Faust. You're just carrying forward the tradition.
Okay. So we have James first, Dr. Simkin, and then
Hi,
George.
hi, Michael. Really great stuff. I just wondered, the first painting that you showed with the snake and the spirits, could you explain that a little bit, please? Very interesting looking.
I believe it's titled Will of the Wisps or something like that over a lake, and that's what these are supposed to be. And I just chose it for the invocation part of it because I don't know, I felt like it matched the mood. And
yeah.
Yeah, it also ties in with the Will o' the Wisps, the Irrlichter in Walpurgis Night. So,
Airing lights.
Yeah.
The lights that make you confused, which is what sometimes is how it's weird how Lucifer and Lucifer, the one who brings the light, then gets reinterpreted because that's Apollo. Then gets reinterpreted by Christianity as the one who brings lights that confuse, lights that lead you astray.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I wanted to incorporate that somehow. But this is only part of what I really wanted to do, but I didn't have enough time. So.
What did you want to do?
So after this scene with Gretchen, I wanted to explore the underworld a bit, and then meet Michael the Archangel, or some Archangel that comes. And
Michael, of course, given,
Yes, because I'm a narcissist. And and I wanted the next scene would have been a kind of like theological dialogue about the problem with evil between Michael and
evil. Okay. I think what you should do is you should keep writing this. And one issue that this age has, our time, is that you can see anything, anywhere, all the time, as long as it's got a big name on it. So you can go and see Wagner and Goethe and Shakespeare, etc., 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 all the time. But but Goethe was well known in his time, but he was not a superstar. To go and see a Michael Wu will be very difficult. And this is really an issue. That everything because everything has to be marketed, etc. In academia, it's the same thing. Because in academia, you have to write something so that you're not allowed to have your own thoughts. You have to be a Hegelian, and you have to be a Deleuzian, and you have to be whatever is currently fashionable. And you will be for the rest of your life. And this is also not just in academia. This is how people think. But what you have to try and do is you have to continue writing this, because it's excellent writing. It's astonishing. And finish it. And once you finish it, try and get this on a stage with people, and be very serious about this. You try and make it work. So you have to find a way of doing this, but you have to find a way, because we have to find ways of doing this. Yeah. Or else culture is self-suffocating. So you have to go and find actors who will put this on, maybe a director who will do this, someone who's brave enough to put this on a stage. Even if it's just as a side note to Goethe's Faust, but that will be a beginning. But think about how you can do this. So once you finish this, that's the next step. Thank you, Michael. This is excellent. So George has got a question.
Can I open my camera, or will Palantir send down fire on me? No, I can't hear you.
What's your question, George?
I was curious. No, okay. Anyway, Michael, amazing writing. Me and you actually spoke a bit on Discord about what you want to do, and fantastic. And I've been thinking a lot about the intermission of Faust 1 to Faust 2, and in my opinion, I think Goethe actually does have an intermission, and it's the play of Helena, which he actually published in his own journal prior to the publishing of Faust 2. And I think that is actually what connects Faust 1 and Faust 2. It's Helena. And I think I don't exactly recall the article as it was published in Goethe's own journal, but it was published, and I think that's meant to be the bridge. I'm not sure if you have heard about that or if somebody else has, but yeah, I just want to mention this. And you should definitely follow Johanna's advice and try to put this up. It's phenomenal writing. Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, George.
Go on, Michael.
I'm just wondering, is this a separate thing he wrote, or is it like drafts, or like an Orpheus kind of thing, or?
It's kind of like a draft, but it's basically like I don't exactly recall the title, but it's like an intermission of Helena, which is then injected, and it's plays a very important part in Faust 2. But yeah, I will send you something about it.
Please, thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Michael. So we've got Paul, and then Michael. I think you have to leave very urgently, but Paul, go ahead.
I did just want to say how much I enjoyed that. Why this is heaven, nor am I out of it. That's excellent. Just in practical terms, I was recently talking to a playwright about how one actually goes about getting things staged. And apparently the way it works in the US is basically you can just send scripts to theaters. Most of them will have some way where you could just send them a script that you'd like them to stage, and at some point they will get back to you on whether or not they actually want to do it. But it's not like, say, book publishing where you need an agent to talk to the publisher. You can just send scripts directly to theaters.
Well, then that's what you should do, Michael. Thank you, Paul. That's excellent advice.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I will. I'll definitely try that.
Fire away. Send them off. Every small. You have to start somewhere. Everyone has to, because it's all suffocated everywhere. Everything is just one big corporate shit show. And it's always just about what sells, for the most part, very often, unfortunately. So in America is, funnily enough, the one place that you could still get an audience that actually listens also. That was my experience as a musician, by the way, is that people in the audience actually listen. So, and you are also American, so, you are in Germany, but, so you could do that. Okay, Michael, this was wonderful. I know that you have to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would have loved to stay, but...
And teach math. At least it's not theology.
Yeah, Faust didn't say math, or he said science.
Yeah. It's a classic Michael. It's at least, because last year it was 3 a.m. when you had to teach a class, right?
Yeah, it's for Americans, so the time the time difference really screws me up. But thank you, everyone, and yeah, it was a pleasure. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. So let's do this. Let's go to Laura and then Paul.
So it's the nature of evil through Goethe's Faust, Part 1. Literature does not merely depict reality, but shapes what society deems permissible to believe and discuss. It serves as a window and a stage, weaving a tapestry of the mind that imprints dreamlike worlds onto the psychology of an age. By reworking fragments of reality, Literature creates narratives that act upon the world, much like simulacra, since these emerge and evolve into distinct hyperrealities, new experiences of the real that are the inferences and evaluations of mind, therefore real, but not necessarily true. It takes the threads of humanity, our striving, victories, and defeats, and contextualizes them in new settings to experience being human as new. Yet, in hindsight, the human drama remains familiar and the tale is as old as time, a humanity wrestling with its existence, purpose, and destiny. Goethe's Faust exemplifies this, using its narrative to explore the profound tensions of the human condition. In Faust, the meeting between God and Mephistopheles reimagines the dialogue from Job chapter 1, portraying opposing forces, divine harmony and the spirit of negation. God exists as a community of being, alive in relational unity, while Mephistopheles embodies disobedience and negation. This cosmic tension mirrors the human condition on earth, in suggesting that both harmony, heaven, and negation, earth, are necessary contrasts for human salvation. The Lord's confidence in humanity's potential, despite its flaws, is evident in the prologue. A good man in his groping, he says, groping Intermission, is well aware of what his proper course. This acknowledgement of a moral law existing within humankind sets the stage for Faust's internal struggle. Faust articulates his inner conflict, declaring, "Two souls, alas, reside within my breast, and each is eager for separation." These two souls represent the material universe and divine light wrestling within him. He hears the celestial tones of the heavenly chorus, but rejects them, admitting, "Although I hear your gospel, I lack your faith." Seeking to master the earth through magic as a corruption of nature and time, yet he fears its consequences, its power, and is rejected and alienated through his frustration. This restlessness, as Mephistopheles notes, leaves him unsatisfied. But nothing near and nothing far away can satisfy a heart so deeply agitated, he says. The Lord responds with hope. Though now he only serves me blindly and ineptly, I soon shall lead him into clarity. This echoes St. Augustine's insight. My heart is restless until it rests in you. St. Augustine defines sin as a caving in on the self, a turning inward that Faust embodies in his pursuit of self-satisfaction over a common relational purpose. Before the written word was the sound of it. The spoken word carried upon a breeze like a spirit that reveals something about us and what shapes our reality, directing action and motion. They, words, are not merely objects, but emerge from a mind grasping with what exists and giving form as a sign of something beyond itself. Scripture underscores the creative power of words, because it is written, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." In Faust, the pursuit of knowledge, science, philosophy, or theology, lacks meaning for him because it is not directed toward a common purpose. Our knowing, when it is aimed at a public good, creates and shapes, giving life and meaning through its theological end. Life, love, and wisdom and justice are inherently relational. To sever these connections is to break the natural order. Faust's desire for escape from this responsibility reflects a soul caved in, seeking private, disconnected satisfaction rather than purposeful connection. The Bible contrasts two fires. One purifies, as seen in heaven's burning coals that cleanse Isaiah's lips, and another which destroys, as in the lake of fire that erases the memory of all evil. God's anger is not a change in his nature, but a call to turn back to him, for he remains the unchanging love. Anger alerts us to the need for change, for it is human to err. This aligns with the view that suffering is not God's purpose, but a mystery through which sin is removed, pointing to the triumph of love. Schelling's view of evil contrasts with Christian theology. He posits evil as a potential within a primordial chaos, ordered by God's light, but not fully controlled, suggesting a limited deity by implying that evil is a structural possibility within God's nature. By grounding evil in God, in his substance, this introduces a duality, deviating from the doctrine of creatio ex nihilo, that everything is created out of God and was called good and has intelligibility. Schelling adds a potentiality to God that is not necessary for movement because God is triune, a community of being who is ipsum esse, that is the sheer act of to be itself, with absolute sovereignty. Potentiality grounded in substance is dependent on time and our freedom to be ourselves, because a thing's potential is concealed from finite mind until it becomes actualized. Yet if God is omniscient and eternal, existing in and beyond time, to him nothing can be potential, for he sees all things at once. So to him, all is actual. In Faust, Mephistopheles takes material form as a poodle, aligning with Schelling's tangible evil, but missing the biblical truth. God is light, in him there is no darkness. St. Aquinas addresses the simplicity of God in his Summa Theologica and addresses that point particularly. St. Augustine states that evil is not a substance but an absence of good, a privation arising from misdirected free will. Schelling's pantheistic leanings obscure the personal God of Abraham, Moses, and Christ, who is both transcendent and immanent, the God who is everywhere and the cause of our being. His notion of evil as a necessary opposite within God contradicts the unchanging, indivisible nature of the Creator, who exists within and beyond space-time. As St. Thomas Aquinas asserts, God is actus purus, pure act, sovereign and the sole source of reality. Mephistopheles declares himself a part of that force which, always willing evil, always produces good. Yet he laments his failure to disrupt creation when he says, in spite of tempest, earthquake, wave, and fire, ocean and land are unperturbed. Similarly, our resistance to a change of heart and mind is demonstrated by the plagues in Exodus, which lead us mysteriously to the necessity of purification from sin through sacrifice and the redemptive suffering of Christ's cross. This paradox aligns with St. Augustine's view that God can bring good from evil, akin to creatio ex nihilo. Evil as an absence of good, when done to us, is a taking away, a theft, a loss, a grief, wounds that leave a mark. This is evidence in the demise of Gretchen's innocence towards her corruption, wrestling with conscience and facing final judgment. Mephistopheles exclaims, "She is judged," and the voice from above, "She is saved." Jesus promises, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Perfection, however, is not a material ideal of completeness in form, but a relational wholeness. Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Love, goodness, and perfection are synonymous, working across all scales of existence. As Kant suggests, we act as ends in ourselves, belonging to one another in unity. Jesus' prayer, I in them and you in me, so that they may be perfectly united, reveals love's power to just transcend all division. Faust, in his fleshly despair, clings to worldly absence, holding on to his tempter's materialism. The concept of substance is complex, defined not by simple material form, but by relational essence. Language struggles to capture the whole except through a name. To explain or describe a thing requires breaking it into parts. Yet a human, for instance, cannot be reduced to DNA or physical structure, and carbon's varied forms remain united in the word carbon. Composites like symphonies or pizzas, a bit random, I know, show that even spaces between notes or variations in recipes hold meaning. Essence then embraces all potential and actual being within a species. Humans have the potential to be chefs or musicians, shaped by nature, nurture, and free will. The human spirit creates and shapes its own space and time, existing discretely yet continuously through shared material relations, like DNA or social behaviors. The word, naming a thing, holds its essence and being together, concealing all possibilities of its whatness. Hegel's concept operates similarly. A name such as Laura acts as a sign for individuality. The name helps us grasp the concrete whole, sublated into a unified individual. A name is not simply a label, but a way of grasping the dialectical unity of the universal, the concept of a human, and the particular specific qualities in a concrete singular being, where individuality is part of a dynamic process that realizes itself in the world. Truth emerges when definitions align with reality, the real that exists independently of the mind and is agreed upon by community. In the Holy Trinity, all possibilities exist as pure act, per Aquinas. Absence arises from refusing relation with God, countered only by love's interdependence. Evil stems from the misuse of freedom, choices contingent on desire. Lawlessness removes all freedom. To say a person can act in any way without bounds is to bind all peoples. As social creatures who have a great need for cooperation through effective altruism or love, love as all things working together with and for each other protects the freedom of another, so that for the individual, who is free in his being, an intention or act ought to have a direction towards the end which respects the freedom of the other. In this way, liberty exists as both an end and a mode, that is, in the self and the other, the individual and the collective. Genesis, let there be light, marks God's creation ex nihilo, separating light from darkness to enable free will. Without freedom, our love cannot be true. We love not for what we ever hoped the other to be in relation to ourselves, the essence of enframing, but love because of the unconcealment of their own particularity, a revelation of love in their freedom. So being as love is perhaps an image of the Creator himself, something beyond our grasp, like death and time. Evil, having no substance, is a spiritual defect, like sloth or perverse intent, persisting and passed on through habits and corruption akin to original sin. Original sin perverted reason and wisdom, opening the eyes of the mind to evil, corrupting both body and soul in its desire to possess. Love, therefore, never possesses, for we can take only memories with us. So the freedom to be and move with and for the other is a coming of heaven to earth, a gathering through two lines of transcendence, earth to sky, and in Jesus, fully mortal, fully divine, we move towards his image in the other. Gretchen senses the presence of Mephistopheles and perhaps his spirit working through Faust when she finds him cold. She says, "Your lips are terribly cold. They do not speak. What has become of the love you had? Who's stolen it from me?" Faust leaves Gretchen imprisoned to her final and particular judgment. To our natural experience, death is the end, our eyes closing to an eternal sleep. Yet in Christian theology, death and life are brought together. A natural death is not evil in itself, but an intended transformation, a continuation of life from one place to the next. Originally free of sadness because heaven and earth were united, and the body without the stain of sin could be assumed into heaven. And this aligns with the dogma of the Assumption of Mary, Mother of God. The fall of Adam and Eve introduced spiritual uncertainty, a problem resolved by the resurrection of Christ, fully God and fully man. God's foreknowledge predestined Christ's cross, which does not negate our free will. Instead, love, gentle and patient, invites participation in our salvation. The parable of the lost sheep affirms each soul's infinite value, all equal in God's eyes. So to conclude, Faust illuminates the human struggle with evil as a restless turning from divine light. Schelling's material grounding of evil falters against the biblical truth of God's omnipotence and transcendence. Evil, as St. Augustine teaches, is the absence of good overcome by love's presence. God's grace through Christ calls us to choose life, which is in Deuteronomy, filling fear's void with love. The human mind derives meaning from connectedness, constructing a life of relatedness where love is the foundation of truth and wisdom. The end. So it's like a newsreader.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Superb writing, I have to say. Really good. So Marin has a question, which is great because that means I don't get to speak now. You're lucky.
Sorry. I just you mentioned. Did you mention in knowing? Is that what you when you mentioned the? Did you actually? I thought you mentioned in knowing and
knowing.
In knowing. I could be totally wrong. I liked that. It kind of,
framing, is that what you said?
Oh, you said in framing. Okay. I was okay. It kind of hit, but in knowing actually hit well with that as well. But anyway, but in framing, explain that anyway. So thank you.
No, that's fine. I actually wrote here. I think someone said that. I think I've written here that Faust has rejected God. Because he actually does. I think this is linking to what someone said earlier, that Mephistopheles has rejected God because, and actually therefore does have knowledge of God, does have knowledge of the transcendence, but he has rejected it because he wants it. He wants that power for himself. And so, I think the power going in both directions. I think Mephistopheles, I think it's both there. And I think it's actually Faust rejects God's omniscience because he actually wants knowledge for himself and then goes on to try and seek the forbidden. So I think it's Faust that rejects transcendence. I just wanted to add that in there, which is not related to what I said, sort of.
Great.
Can I just ask you, Laura, in Genesis, and I spotlight myself, in Genesis, because once the Elohim out of the picture, which is striking, right? That is Yahweh is not the creator God. Let's not forget that. Yahweh, he hovers around, he saunters about in the Garden of Eden, but he's not omniscient, is he? Because you know the text better than I. He walks around and says, "What are you doing over there? Were you eating the fruit?" So
Well, he does. Sorry, I'm just going to come back at that because he actually says to Jeremiah, doesn't he? I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you before you were born. So kind of sets himself outside of time, and Jesus does as well. So there is continuity there. Jesus is clearly beyond space time when the resurrected body suddenly appears in the room. It's kind of telling us that he is aligning with that kind of
Not what I asked, though.
Pardon?
Not what I asked. I asked specifically about Yahweh, something about in Garden of Eden. But okay, apart from this,
yeah,
what you did, I think, was very strong, very good, is that Faust wants to be omniscient, and I think this is something we have to take seriously. I mean, you're Christian, and it's you look at this in a different way than I do, but the way I look at this is we only want to be omniscient because of the presupposition of an omniscient God.
Imitation. I thought
yes, and that's extremely dangerous, obviously, right? So, because Andrew mentioned before Balthasar's The Apocalypse of the German Soul, you could understand German idealism, this tension between the invisible and the visible, as really just how to make sense of this ultimately strange religion for all of Europe. And something else I wanted to ask you before we go to Dr. Simkin and George. Because there are moments in your essay, which is, again, the writing is superb and it's really well argued. But if you take it seriously, if you take original sin seriously, and also evil, the way you present it is a classical presentation of evil as weakness, etc., and that's all fine. And I understand, and I would actually prefer that to Schelling. But isn't original sin necessary for if you not just for human freedom, but even in the biblical story itself? So you see, if you could just maybe elaborate on those contradictions. Why is the devil necessary? Why is there a serpent in the first place?
Well, yes. I mean, Scripture doesn't actually answer why there's a serpent in the first place, does it? So that actually comes as non-canonical stuff and legend. But you said, "Oh, I don't uncritically think about Christianity." That's not quite true.
That was in the comments. That was private.
I wouldn't.
Some of my comments made it into your essay, which is good to see. But go on.
Yeah, no, they did, absolutely. They were very pointed and useful and very good. So thank you for that. I mean, I do come from a different point of view. I come from the point of view that the Scripture is true, and it is just we who don't understand it.
Yeah.
So it's always an emerging thing for us as we kind of wrestle with that. But back to your original point, the serpent, I don't know, but actually I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have, that if everything is actual to God, that means that he knew that sin would, if it existed as a possibility, then he knew it was going to happen. But then
that's very good. That's very good. But then you're sneaking in Aristotle into Christianity. But go on.
Yeah, well, Aquinas did that, didn't he? So,
but then you have to. Yes, exactly, he did. But then you have to wonder why.
Yeah, he did. Well, no, because it's not beyond reason. So reason and divine revelation work together. So I don't think, I think that is Origen's two minds, isn't it? You've got mind from without, and you've got our finite mind. But actually also in Genesis, I do think that Jesus is already there. And I think that he is language has broken it down into parts, but you've got the flaming sword on the way to the tree of life, guarding the way to the tree of life. And Jesus says, I come to bring a sword, etc., etc.
Well,
So
he is the Messiah after all.
Yeah.
So he was
you've got
expected.
that
He was
in the
expected, but he
beginning.
wasn't. But also crucially, he was not accepted then when he did arrive.
No, he wasn't. But actually, I think there's a lot that we can take from Job. I was thinking about this earlier, that actually in some way, Jesus is the answer to Job, because he takes on the suffering himself, and he permits that freedom that evil has. So Satan is actually free. I don't think God is the spirit of negation. Unless you say that permission in itself is negation, that freedom to be is actually in opposition to the other, or creates the possibility for the opposition to the other. So I think there's still lots to explore.
Yeah. No, very good. And we're going to James next. I want to say something that we've sort of lost in this. I mean, not we here, but overall, is confrontational debate. What's at stake is never the person. I mean, you can attack someone for that, but if what's at stake is die Sache, or the heart of the matter, the thing, whatever you want to call it, then that should always be up for debate. And I think it's a sign, because you saw my comments, you all did. I mean, some of you have been here longer. If all you get back, let's say you go to university and all you see, well, it's a very nice thing. Because I had a professor once at King's College London, no less, whoa, one of the top ranked schools in this country, who all he ever said was, this is great stuff. This is really great stuff. And there was a student in our group who said, Harry Potter is on the same level as Shakespeare. Because I'm a relativist and everything's the same. This is in aesthetics. And of course, the teacher, the lecturer, should have pushed back. Maybe not to defend Shakespeare, but at least push back against just sheer relativism. But of course, the guy didn't, because he was worried about his evaluation in the end. And so what you end up in is there's never confrontation. It's just a senseless collapse into meaningless agreement. And we need to be able again to sharpen our knives, to realize that Laura said this. I would never agree with this, but but you just the word is each other, and we have to figure it out. What I would agree with is this: we're finite beings, so we have to figure something out, and we can only figure it out if we actually are in a good manner confrontational, because we're wrestling with the truth. And the truth is not ours to behold. It's not ours to hold. I mean, it's not maybe to behold for a second, but it's not ours to possess, and we don't proclaim it. And Laura, go on.
That. Yeah, I would counter that just in again.
Just for the sake of it, yeah.
Well, no, not just for the sake of it, but actually going back to something that was it Andrew said about individualistic in thinking and interpretation and sola fide, etc. I actually think that the collective as the church is necessary.
Yeah, but that's
to ground,
yes.
Because people can think, but you still always need the collective to kind of do the discerning.
No, exactly. The truth is the truth, but the truth can. So what? Maybe we're basically agreeing. I'm not saying it's everyone's personal truth. It's rather that if there's no confrontation and discussion, then you're basically just dogmatically nodding along, or there's not, and anything goes. It's not. So I'm not saying it's subjectivistic. Saying the exact opposite. It has to be directed towards the higher, trying to find the truth.
Yeah,
But you cannot
you know,
presuppose in our time a dogmatic institutional truth, I don't think.
I do think that there is a counter in what I've said. You know, a necessary thing that if the church is necessary to help kind of manage that truth and hold that truth together. And I'm just trying to remember which philosopher said this, but he was commenting on other philosophers who sit at a desk in a room, you know, philosophizing about the world, and they come up with some dangerous ideas that actually do, you know, then end up taking off and people accept them. And, you know, so philosophy and the philosopher on by himself actually isn't necessarily always helpful, because words do matter, words do have meaning.
Yeah, words have meaning, but but the how you enact them also matters. But what all I'm trying to say is something else, which is if there's no discussion, if there is just a nodding along to anything goes, and no debate, let's say no confrontation, then you end up where meaning basically evaporates and disappears. It's a bit different from what you were trying to get at, I think. Okay, James, let's go to you.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for that. You mentioned about magic, and something that I thought about when hearing about Faust turning to magic. I wonder what your thought is. In this supposedly rational modern times, why is it that Faust turns to magic? That seems an unusual choice. And also we see this in culture, you know, on social media, etc., where people are reading tarots and stuff like that. Why is it that in modernity, why do people reach for magic of all things, it seems, when they come to this dead end?
Yeah, I think there's two separate things here. I think the tarot and magic are not necessarily the same thing. The tarot, for example, is a desire for certainty about the future, and that is a kind of safety seeking. So what you're actually getting, particularly when I was talking about Haman in the Book of Esther, and he determines a date. This is what humans want. They want certainty. They don't want to wrestle with the invisible. They don't want to wait for the unconcealment. They want power now. And perhaps that's what Faust is wrestling with. But with magic in itself, I obviously, using a biblical reference here, would think about the devil tempting Jesus. He asks Jesus to turn the stones into bread, which is essentially magic. And it's not that, I mean, if you logically think about it, you know, scientifically, that actually stones have turned into bread over, you know, billions of years. So it's a corruption of nature that Jesus is tempted with. And so that's why I've said in there that magic is a corruption of nature and time.
But he also turns water into wine, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's very true. But that is
and every Sunday,
power.
all good Christians participate in cannibalism.
Or what? Sorry,
you're all cannibals, aren't you? Because you eat his flesh.
Well, yeah, that is an ancient accusation cast at Christians, isn't it? But I think, you know, you've got the supernatural, which is in with God's power, and Mary representing the divine feminine wisdom, actually says, listen to him. So she's actually saying, depend on God, listen to what he's saying and do it, obey. So I do think there's a complete difference, because you know, the intention, if we're going to be talking about words, the intention behind the spirit of negation, or the devil's temptation, is completely different. He wants God to be subject to him, he wants to have power over God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think George also has a question.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Great speech you gave, actually, and I will listen to it again afterwards. I just had a question to you. When we speak of omniscience, would you say that something like the eye of providence is Christian?
The eye of providence.
Yeah.
The all-seeing eye. What do you mean by that? I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, because in most cases, omniscience is thought of in that way. That
Is
it's kind
this
of
an ancient
that
thing?
that is kind of this peeping eye, looking through, seeing everything, peeping into the bedrooms of people and so on. But Johannes also mentioned something very interesting, that in Genesis, Jesus actually is quite humble. He asks out, "Where are you?" You know, Adam and Eve.
Yeah, I love that.
But when I'm in Sweden, though, and I go into Catholic and Protestant churches, I see the eye of providence everywhere. And I always ask myself, even when I was young, is there really like a God behind this whole peeping there at us? That's not really omniscient. That's not powerful. And I always was kind of curious, you know, how this is viewed in relation to evil. So yeah, this is the context in which I'm asking this question. Like, would you see this type of symbol as kind of Christian?
Actually, I think that's really interesting, because if you think about the call of Jeremiah, when he actually says to Jeremiah, what do you see, Jeremiah? And I love that. He says, what do you see, Jeremiah? And Jeremiah says, I see the branch of an almond tree. And that symbolism of the almond tree is about being watchful, is about being awake. And you've also got in Song of Songs and in the Psalms, you've got about being the watchman. And Wendy, you're like this, but the plants are watchmen as well, because they follow the sun. And so you've got this ancient idea of watchfulness, of us looking, but you've also got the evil eye as well, because everyone used to have evil, eyes to absorb the evil coming from the eyes, because the ancients believed in extramission, that light actually came out of the eyes. And so you have to, when you're thinking particularly about ancient myths and things like that, you have to consider the context and at that time, and when it was written, and what they actually thought about seeing, because it was very different to how we think about seeing now. So do I think I think it's fascinating. So yeah, I think God is all seeing. So therefore it would have some, definitely.
All right, thank you, Laura. Although I would like to mention one thing, that I think the Eye of Providence started popping up around the High Middle Ages in Europe, not before. But anyhow, thank you so much.
Just it's slightly not connected, but in some ancient Jewish cultures, they used to write words on bowls and put the bowls upside down underneath their houses to capture evil spirits. So the word having power over evil. It's not quite the same thing, but it just popped in my mind.
Okay, thank you so much, Laura. I think Paul is next then. Paul Rodriguez, where is he?
I'm right here.
Okay, let me try and pin you so that... Yes, okay. The floor is yours.
Is anyone else presenting, or am I closing us out?
I think after you we have Marin and James.
Okay.
So you're not the last one. If you want to be the last one, then
that's all right.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be presenting on the case of Gretchen's mother. I'll remind you that Johanna's asked for our craziest ideas.
Yeah, as always. It's a very good idea. Very important one.
The value of pursuing philosophy by literary means is that if it is successful, character and symbol parallel one another. They become cohesive and congruent. The characters illuminate what they represent, and symbolism and interpretation help us better understand the characters and their actions. Goethe wrote a play, not a treatise, because he wanted to say what only a play could say, what requires that symbols come to life. The first part of the play leaves a question open. What happened to Gretchen's mother? Goethe chooses to leave her death unexplained, except in Gretchen's final maddened self-accusation. Was her death an accident, or was it premeditated? If premeditated, who was responsible? Gretchen's mother's fate influences how we interpret the moral atmosphere of the first part of the play, and it may also affect how we interpret the conclusion of the second part of the play. When a play that begins with Faust's abandonment of Christianity ends not with his acceptance of Christianity, but Christianity's acceptance of him, when his restless soul, without a deathbed conversion, without a moment of repentance, is taken up by Christian angels into a distinctly Christian heaven. Gretchen's mother's death is the condition of Gretchen's fate. The loss of their mother dooms both siblings. It leaves Valentine only the fatal pursuit of patriarchal honor, and it leaves Gretchen without recourse or reliance in the birth of her child. Of course, had Gretchen's mother lived, it is not beyond the bounds of human hard-heartedness for her to have cast out her wayward daughter. But then, with her mother to blame for her suffering, Gretchen might have learned spite instead of despair and ended in hatred instead of madness. But who was this woman? What do we know about her? She never appears. She is not even given a name, yet she sets the stage for what is to come. Gretchen's mother leaving Gretchen alone to care for her dying younger sister taught Gretchen the sadness that leaves her singing in her solitary bedroom of the sad death of the king of Thule, when other girls her age would have been singing the love songs of the country. It is Gretchen's mother who, though of ample means, keeps no servants to relieve Gretchen of toil, who treats her daughter as a servant. It is her mother's withdrawal that leaves Gretchen exposed to the tragedy that will ensnare her. But what actually happened to Gretchen's mother? Who is responsible? There are 4 possibilities. No one, Mephistopheles, Faust, or Gretchen herself. At first, accidental death seems plausible. An old woman is given a powerful sedative that proves too much for her, and the tragedy can unfold as necessity demands. But if we remember the supernatural insight of Mephistopheles, the medical expertise of Faust, and Gretchen's familiarity with her mother, accident appears less plausible. There is blame here, if only in carelessness. Of course, Mephistopheles could be responsible. Gretchen's mother has infuriated him by discarding the first treasure he procured. The eternal spirit that negates is negated by a mere mortal, his efforts made to serve the church. The moment Faust meets Gretchen, he leaves behind the phantasmagoria of the witch's den. The moment Faust leaves Gretchen behind, fleeing the charge of murder, Mephistopheles buries him back in the kindred dream world of an endless Walpurgis night. Gretchen has been negated for a time, as if she never existed. Faust's own laboratory was Wagner's by now, busy brewing the homunculus. Who but Mephistopheles could have supplied the sleeping potion? Gretchen had the instinct to fear Mephistopheles, and she was right. The question is not whether he would arrange Gretchen's mother's death. Of course he would, but only if he did. Faust could also be responsible. Faust himself is an alchemist, a master of potions and poisons alike. In some stagings, the potion he hands Gretchen is the same poison he nearly used to end his own life. That in itself does not convict him. Faust would have known the dictum of Paracelsus, dosis sola facit venenum, the dose makes the poison. But 3 drops is a curiously specific quantity, especially considering Faust never met Gretchen's mother and knew nothing of the patient he was prescribing for. And if Mephistopheles had given Faust, doctor and alchemist, a poison to pass on, he of all people should have recognized it for what it was. But Gretchen herself might also have been responsible. She was the one who administered the dose. She might have chosen to add a few drops more to secure a deeper, longer sleep without understanding the consequences, or more than a few drops. Gretchen's expectations are puzzling. Somehow, Gretchen expects to marry Faust. When she speaks to her friend Lieschen at the well, she expects the unfortunate Sibylla will wed her lover. In her madness, she speaks of what should have been her wedding day. Yet, when Faust offers to walk Gretchen home, she won't hear of it for fear of his meeting her mother. And the very first thing she asks him on their next meeting is the Gretchenfrage. The thought of Faust's meeting her mother leads Gretchen directly to the question of his religious belief, a test he fails. Knowing her mother would never allow it, how could she still expect to marry Faust, with his heretical, post-Christian ideas he is unwilling to conceal? Simple enough to administer a sleeping potion in excess and open a way to the marriage she longs for. Mephistopheles, Faust, and Gretchen all share some potential degree of responsibility, but Goethe chooses to leave the specifics ambiguous. If then character should illuminate symbol, what does this ambiguity illuminate? What remains true regardless of where we assign responsibility? All the motives on the part of all the parties involve freedom, freeing Faust of Gretchen or freeing Gretchen of her mother. If we assign responsibility to Mephistopheles, what does it tell us about him? Only perhaps what we already knew. Mephistopheles wants to fill his divinely appointed task, to free Faust from his lingering Christian conventionality and keep him striving beyond the limits of his society. Gretchen stands in the way of this. Depriving Gretchen of her family dooms her and sets Faust free again for Mephistopheles to serve and, as servant, guide. If we assign responsibility to Faust, interpreting Faust as symbolic of reawakened European civilization, we see him breaking through whatever comes between him and the pre-Christian vitality long iced over with Christian forms and rules, a subsumption Gretchen's mother symbolizes. And if we assign responsibility to Gretchen, we see much the same. The energy of nature and nature's devotees no longer contented to appear under the guise of saints and miracles, but standing forth again under its own name. But if we assign responsibility to Gretchen, her misfortune deepens and her redemption becomes more remarkable. Faust will soon try, and fail, to reconcile the modern and the ancient in his relationship with Helen. We could understand his relationship with Gretchen as a similar attempt, to reconcile not with classical antiquity, but with Germanic. Gretchen has something of the fairy tale about her, her grim upbringing, the lost sister, the cold mother, and yet her cheerfulness and contentment. Unseen hands bestow golden treasures upon her. She is not depicted as a countrywoman, but she has the country about her, and while we are told she lives among neighbors, Faust envisions her home isolated in a meadow. Faust calls Gretchen angel, but after all, the humanoid angels of folk Christianity are only the pre-Christian gods in translation. If we understand Gretchen's innocence to symbolize the persistence of the pre-Christian, we can understand both the necessity of her tragedy and the conditions of her redemption. Because the post-Christian cannot be the recurrence of the pre-Christian. The vitality briefly showing forth in her, the freedom she briefly attains from the constraints of her society, has no roots and cannot grow. The new world can be built nowhere except upon the ruins of the old. What succeeds Christianity can only sublate it, not displace it. Gretchen achieves freedom for herself and for Faust only when she receives back the religion that has rejected her not as an earthly mother's imposition, but as a heavenly mother's gift. But why does any of this matter? Gretchen's earthly fate is governed by the loss of her earthly mother, but Faust's eternal fate is altered in the moment Gretchen, at last, finds reciprocated maternal affection, love that enables her to intercede on behalf of Faust and prevent Mephistopheles carrying his soul to hell and torment. It is by the pull of this eternal feminine of Gretchen and the heavenly mother she has found that Faust is enabled to follow, as Dante follows Beatrice, a transformed Gretchen, and to continue his striving beyond the boundaries of the play.
Is this the end?
It is.
I think this is probably your best writing so far that I've heard.
I mean, it's pretty rough. I've only revised it about 10 times, so
Yeah, only about 10 times. Yes, maybe 12 times would have helped. They're really good. Questions? Anyone? I have one. Raise your hands if you want to ask Paul a question. So, okay, Marin goes first, and then I go. Marin.
Hey, so Paul, you ended with the way that you ended it is with the mother and the mother Mary, which but most of it, if you seem to you're into the story of it, right? Which is it's so rich that you can really get into the plots and the stories and the characters. And anyway, I thought that was great. It's more of a comment, but I guess if you want to elaborate how you with what you ended with.
So you're asking me to elaborate on the conclusion and this notion of, Gretchen's reunion with, or Gretchen's union, I should say, with Mary.
Yes,
I'm referring
thought
to
that
the
was
end.
great.
I'm referring to the end of part 2, where we find Gretchen as a penitent in the company of Mary and various heavenly beings, not God, just Mary, and she seems to be the one who has interceded on Faust's behalf. At some point, Faust does lose the bet. He decides that he is contented with his current situation, and Mephistopheles promptly attempts to drag him off to hell. But angels, apparently through Gretchen's intervention, intervene to prevent this, and he is in fact brought to heaven instead. So, and of course, it doesn't end with his attainment of internal bliss. Instead, we find the last lines. It might have been better if I hadn't read Faust before I took the course. Then I could have done a better job at just sticking to part 1. But at the end, we have the mystical chorus talking about the eternal feminine leading us on or showing us the way, depending on the translation you use. And that eternal feminine, it seems to me, is something that isn't just Mary or isn't just Gretchen. It's kind of between them, sublates both of them, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I see that Gretchen is such a huge force in the in the first part of it. There's so much that you can go into about that, and I just thought you hit on it. I haven't really in depth read the second part, so but anyway, Helen is a feature, and the feminine force is definitely a feature of it. I do know that, but in any event, yes, you did.
Great, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, Paul, that was very interesting. I think you said that Christianity couldn't be overcome; it could only be sublated, which would. I wonder what you meant by that. Could you elaborate on it more, or maybe you did? I missed it. I don't know.
What I'm trying to say is that if you're hypothetically trying to overcome Christianity or to become post-Christian, then you can't just pretend that Christianity never happened. If you dwell on its, if you're trying to overcome Christianity with sacrifice, you're just continuing Christianity under another name because Christianity is all about sacrifice. If you're dismissing Christianity as propositionally incoherent or absurd, that's also a Christian point of view about Christianity, that it is absurd. Credo quia absurdum est. If you want to get beyond it, then you have to take it seriously.
Yeah. I think Chesterton said that modernity was just Christianity turned on its head. So
if you try to ignore Christianity and the history of it and how much it has shaped the world we live in, that you just end up recapitulating it on a secular level.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe we already have been ignoring it for the last 200 years. The idea we're just trying to overcome it now.
In a sense, we have to be more Christian than the Christians ever were. I mean, one of the things I tried to make strong throughout the course is that if you're a good Catholic, you know nothing about Christianity. Novalis, look at, this is in the first lecture. I didn't mention it in the lecture, but there's a link to a PDF. Novalis' Europe or Christendom. Novalis explicitly says, stop reading the Bible. Stop reading it. Go back to being good Catholics.
Yeah.
So in a sense, we're almost more Christian now because we're confronted with the Bible to a degree that with all translations, and the same is true for the Greeks, etc. I think Paul, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say there's also the argument to be made that even Christianity nowadays is post-Christian in the sense that Christianity in Goethe's time was not just a set of religious beliefs, but the entire lattice work of Christendom, a coherent and total system and way of life that encompassed everything, whether or not it really had anything to do with the religion per se.
Yeah. So what Paul is saying is very important because, when, for example, when Heidegger speaks of the overcoming of metaphysics, etc., it's in a sense when he asks, "Was ist Metaphysik?" What is metaphysics? Is he's taking metaphysics more seriously than metaphysics could ever take itself? Not due to any failure of metaphysics, but because metaphysics, in a way, you don't see it what you're in. But once you're outside of it, you begin to see it. So you have to appreciate it more. But even a damnatio memoriae that we've discussed also the possibility of, if you want to condemn something to forgetting, you have to know what you're condemning, what you're banning from memory. So in a way, in a strange way, we have to be, if we want to be post-Christian, you have to be more Christian than anyone has ever been. I don't know if that's what Paul is trying to say, but that's how I understand it, at least, which I think is very important. Andrew, Paul, whoever.
Yeah. So it seems we can't overcome it anyway.
Sorry?
So it seems we can't overcome it anyway. We can't be Mick Jagger, so.
No, but we are all, in some sense, to deviate from Robert Paulson, we are in some sense all Mick Jagger. On a less, less creative, perhaps less successful, etc. level, but we're not satisfied by anything. Nothing. Huh?
I don't know. I think von Balthasar would say, I mean, Mick Jagger is a failed individual. He's not really.
Yeah, but
achieved his philosophical...
No, he's achieved everything you could achieve. I mean, so he's more than accomplished.
He may as well be 18 still. He's just he's not reached philosophical maturity. Whatever he is, 80 or something. So we must get beyond Jagger, not limit ourselves to such unphilosophical existence.
Maybe. Thank you, Andrew. George, and then Wendy.
Something I would like to ask or maybe pose is what Paul said about really taking Christianity seriously. The question is always, what is Christianity? because people always start treating it as this kind of, oh, it's Catholicism or Protestantism. But they always kind of forget an important thing about Christianity is that it has a built-in mechanism to hide itself. And it's that it's very easy to become a heresy in Christianity, unlike Islam, for example. People mistake this, they see this as a flaw. But this is actually a central component that it is able to hide itself. Only those with the right ears can notice it. And this is something which is it goes over the head of everybody today, even because it's so common to see people celebrating, oh, yes, we're going to unite all the Christian churches and whatnot, but this is not Christianity. And it's take it seriously, but what is it to take serious? I think that's a very important question, but yeah, maybe it's not philosophical. Maybe it's more personal. I don't know.
But that is its strength, that it is that. I mean, this is what I think what Aristotle means by katholos. It's not a universal that everything has to strive. This one that subdues the many.
Yes,
it's quite the opposite. It's there's a one and many coming together, but uniquely. And that's why the Catholic faith is the only faith. I mean, to quote my friend Ryan Hecker, if you're going to be Christian, just be Catholic. But
no, that's too visible, too political.
Yeah, but it's the most beautiful. Look, I mean, look at
sensual.
Laura. I think Laura agrees with me. But I mean, I'm Catholic, so just look at our sun. It's everything's so beautiful. It's so aesthetically pleasing.
But where is the cross on the hill?
Yes, but the Protestants have Bach.
What?
The Protestants have Bach.
Oh, that was just a accident of birth.
The Greek Orthodox are all Catholics.
So let's go to Ms. Dorfmeyer.
Hi, I just wanted to. Okay, I'm just going to go. I keep hearing in Faust and Goethe's writing the elements of his own life, his personal experience. And even in the piece that I did, there was a lot of reference to the Sublime for Kant. And I remember reading, I tried to find out where it was, so correct me if I'm wrong, but he admitted that philosophy was often out of his realm, that it, and that it was through the people that he met that would talk to him about it, and he began to understand, particularly with Kant. And he didn't like Kant's first two critiques, but I looked for it in Stefanski. It wasn't there, but I think in Eckermann somewhere he said that finally he read the Critique of Judgment, and that illuminated. And there, he at that point was able to understand, to accept that element of Kant. So anyhow, that's not really my question or my comment. What I want to comment on is I can't get no satisfaction, because he says it frequently, and this relates to what you said in one of the previous classes, that Goethe felt that not everybody would come back to this realm once they died, only certain people. And in Stefanski, he clearly says that he has to keep acting. He has to keep going, because that's the only way he can come back, the action has to go to the very end.
Yeah.
So for me, the striving doesn't have anything to do with satisfaction. The striving has to do with that's what you have to do in order to fulfill your ending, in order to have I don't want to, I want to say good, I don't want to describe that ending, except for that he felt that was very important, that you had to keep going. And so it's not necessarily striving towards anything, it's just striving. You have to keep moving. That's how I read it.
Yeah, even though that, of course, can lead itself it can be a reductio ad absurdum, if you like, a reduction into the absurd.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what he's saying, though.
No, it's not what he's
I mean-
saying. But so the striving, I think, there needs to be a telos after all, and so this is why the notion of entelechy is crucial. So it's not just striving. There's an entelechy. So you've got something to complete that is within you.
Okay, well then that's
and
what
one lifetime in one lifetime isn't enough for it. So let's say you're Turner. Yeah. You're this great painter who invents modern painting. So when Turner dies, that entelechy of modern painting isn't over. It's not people or persons. It's just that modern painting doesn't end with Turner, obviously. He is one instantiation of that possibility. So there will be someone else. There's not a rebirth, but that entelechy, that form of possibility, that recurs. That continues.
I didn't want to define the ending for Goethe because I don't remember him actually saying, but it was his work. It was Faust mainly that he just kept working on.
For 6 years.
In other words, to the end. And it was finally, at that, so again, I don't see this as it's not a dissatisfaction kind of thing. It's a knowing that you have to keep on your project or whatever. Your what it is you're to do. Yeah. So anyhow, that is what is in my. What I wrote. There's like a lot of little bits in there that I might expand on for Faust 2 because I have not read Faust 2 yet. Oh, well, I read some of it in the Spengler class. I started it.
Next year.
Yeah, but I feel that that was just like whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm honest. I do not know.
Well, we've got all...
It was like all these things that must have been swirling around in me that just like whoosh, anyhow. But I can read it. I read it as if I'm someone else, like, okay, what's the, and I can hear, the bits, I can hear a lot of things in there. I hope other people can, but maybe not. Anyhow, I just wanted to to ask you about that satisfaction thing, because I don't think that Faust is looking for satisfaction. I don't think that's I don't know. I guess maybe.
But it depends how you understand satisfaction. But it's in some sense you can understand this song by the Stones as a sort of a misdirected or misguided striving that's not capable, because what he sings is this man coming on the radio and he's not smoking the same cigarettes as me, so it's already all about consumption. But that's what that striving can turn into, and it actually doesn't find as an entelechy, it's telos. And the telos that it has to find is that life does become, and this is what the notion of building, I think, exemplifies, is that life does become a Gesamtkunstwerk, a complete work of art. Given the conditions that we're in, so the accelerated pace of life, etc., etc. Okay, so thank you, Wendy. We do have, I think, 3 more who want to present, if I'm not mistaken. We've got George, James, and Marin. So Laura, if you have a question, keep it brief, perhaps.
Well, it was just a comment on the striving, actually. I find it quite helpful to think of it as if Faust is striving for something he believes he lacks. And I think you probably said it, actually. I find it helpful to think that rest is actually realizing that we don't lack anything, which means in turn that we actually have responsibility for everything that we do. So we can't pass blame. So that's just how I see rest.
So along the lines of that comment, there's always to be recommended Joseph Pieper's Leisure, the Basis of Culture, which, if you don't know it goes very much in that direction. And that's of course has tied to Augustus and all the other and Aristotle. So let's go to Marin. Marin, you're fine with being published, yes?
Yes, I'm going to leave it at your discretion. Okay, I could have
no. I mean,
I could have written in gold what I did here, and it will not be worth anything compared to what you guys. Some of you guys actually spoke on the entire work, which blows my mind. I should have never even thought about doing the entire work. I couldn't do that. I don't have that ability. But anyway, I'll let you decide when I'm done if it should be published. Actually, I was going to do this out in the garden, by the way. Also, there's such beautiful flowers in bloom that we have in our garden here, and but it was the signal. Couldn't get the signal to reach. So
damn you, Techne.
Yes. So I'll start with I wanted to, if that's okay, I'd like to read two poems basically that are not mine. They're very ancient. We don't know whose they are. But I was reminded, reading Faust reminded a lot of things. But there's two aspects to Faust here. One is that he lives. His mindset is in a hierarchy. I mean, given that the time setting, it's understandable that that's the case. And he believes that he has not reached those heights or doesn't even possess them to the point of almost suicide, in fact, I think. And then also another aspect was that he's looking for truth. I think that he really does, even though he wants to strive and he wants to have these experiences, he doesn't want deception in it. He wants truth, whatever that might be. So the first one is Katha Upanishad. It's mantras 6 through 8. Having known the dissimilarity of the senses that originate separately, as also rising and setting, the intelligent person does not grieve. The mind is superior to the organs. The intellect is superior to the mind. The soul is superior to the intellect. The unmanifested, the eternal witness, is superior to the soul. But superior to the unmanifested is the spirit, who is pervasive and is indeed without worldly attributes, knowing whom one becomes freed and attains immortality. That's Katha Upanishad, mantras 6 through 8. And then I want to do Isha Upanishad. This is probably pretty well known, but this is mantra 15 and 16. I actually did this interpretation myself years ago, so it's going to be a little bit different, but it is true to the original Sanskrit. By the lid of the golden orb, the face of truth is hidden. Please remove it, O thou nourisher of the world, so that I may see thee, I who am devoted to truth. O nourisher, O lonely courser of the heavens, O regulator, O sun, thou offspring of the Lord of all born beings, remove thy rays, gather up thy effulgence, so that I may see that which is the most auspicious effulgence, the person that is in thee, that am I. And so that was something I was reminded of while reading Goethe's fantastic, incredible work. Now I'll go and murmur what I've written here. All right, let's see here. Sorry. And originally I had titled it Goethe's Gift because there's a generosity that runs through his whole life and a sensitivity that I'm realizing a couple of things that, also that Hegel is a child of Goethe. I'm sorry. That's going to piss a lot of people off or make people blow people's. Goethe spawned Hegel. Hegel took a slither of what Goethe has and made a living on it. I mean, the whole Anverbandung and let's see, many things, morphology that he came up with. Even the zarte imperi, the delicate empiricism, as its quote is interpreted or as sometimes, which I don't think captures the what it really means. But in any event, I'm mumbling. I was reading this. I was made to wish that my native tongue was Deutsch, for one of the species' greatest minds wrote and thought in it, Goethe. Perhaps nowhere more incredibly, more deeply than in Faust, a work deserving to be counted among the wonders of the world. In its mythopoetic mastery, among many other things that were mastered in it, Goethe constructs a monument that is at once anchored in his culminated epic and also as prophetic of our age and the age to come, I think. If there is anything that I learned from the work, it was not to fear imprecision in our efforts to articulate the real. What seems like error in one century may be revelation in the next. Truth is inescapable, yet our fixation on precision often blinds us to vision. In an age such as ours, it may be imprecision, not measurement, that best serves actual realization. What you cannot measure is not real, it'll be said, but recognize this as the fatal inversion. For measurement is the beginning of our fiction in this time. It renders the living inert, a cadaver made useful, but no longer alive. Today's techniques, driven by demographic survivalism, reduce nature to mere survivability, like a spider mistaking its web for the cosmos. We conflate utility with meaning. Such techniques are violent, a form of philosopherian bereavement. I got philosopherian from the doctor, and I guess that was from Goethe. And my favorite two sections of this work, which is what I was really going to concentrate on, is the forest and cave is how it's translated usually, but I think it should be the wood and hollow, considering that it is about the nature of his natural interaction with Gretchen, and also his interaction with nature at the same time. And so I write, in Walden Horde, if I pronounce that correctly in German, I think is poorly translated as forest and cave. It should be wood and hollow, considering its content is both Faust's encounters with the unmediated nature in Gretchen and the forest. Faust, having been initially dwarfed by the earth spirit, becomes in his second encounter with the earth spirit in Walden Hode, again dwarfed by nature's presence, but this time in appreciation and awe to Gretchen. She, the condemned, becomes, by Goethe's generosity and compassion, a queen of transition, signaling the close of Christendom's long dominion. But this ending does not return us to nature's kingdom. Rather, it marks an ascent, the sensual den of Walpurgis night, the first sparks of industry, flare, sand igniting, beneath Mammon's feet. The Lord of Measure rises as machinery. And then I'm going to read passage 39:15, but I'll do that at the end. Goethe's vision exposes modernity's maladaptation urgently and uncomfortably. Without chaotic clarity, the sanest of us will fail to perceive our current crisis. Whether or not the tipping points are near or far off, the design of our world presently requires blindness be part of it. Sophisticated UX or user design, AI interfaces, veil disaster with ergonomic grace. A form of reverse terraforming is in the works, hidden from us. The tools that are built that could rescue us actually accelerate the collapse. So acceleration, accelerationists don't have to worry. It's happening. It's happening faster than ever. But it runs deeper than that. Our very reliance on objective reality, where objects seem to possess unshakable properties like solidity, in fact, is after all relationally contingent. And it's usurped by a need in these days to see the world as affordable. So object permanence becomes one of the features of a false reliability, or a seeming mundane reliability comes into the service of such blindness to any coming actual disaster or posing as a feature of stability, really is what it is, where there might be the most instability. Now, this insight, as many, of course, escapes the sterile lexicons of today's science, where it devolves into ideological and political rivalry and the spiritual evisceration of knowledge through a scientific method, unrelated to the actual insidiousness of a maladapted, what I have termed Weltgestalt, which I get that from Goethe, which Goethe I found in outside reading. Really, Gestalt became some kind of he preferred Bildung as formation, meaning like the wavering shapes that he talks about in the very first line of the dedication is about his system, really, of being able to for a person to be able to I guess discern what's going on in the world, and these moving shapes. So I use Gestalt and Weltgestalt in that sense, not in something that's static, but it's a deceptive shaping, of course. Yet in all of this, Goethe's offering remains available to the sane. Having lived when Earth was scarcely a billion fellow souls old, he yet crafted a vision far exceeding his time. We are its inheritors, and its realization is still ours to claim. We must resist the cult of perfect information. Truth is not data, it is encounter. And indeed, the flux has always persisted. Pythagoras' harmonies shimmer in Schrodinger's sigh. Aristarchus reemerges in Copernicus. Descartes' vortices become Einstein's curves. And unfortunately, Adam Smith's invisible hand, it today is ossified into an algorithmic governance, soulless and spectral. Even Plato's forms refactored through the term that I've come up with, which is Weltgestalt, which is not that original, but I like it. I think it's a good handle on what's going on. And thanks to Goethe, by the way, suggests not ideal templates, but our own species-specific imperfections reflected back at us. The real danger is ignorance. The real danger is not ignorance, but blindness to blindness. Heidegger's contrast between earth and world returns with a bitter irony. The more we accumulate, the less we can know of the truth of its deterioration. UX design, user experience design, ensures comfort while obscuring consequences, priming us for a technocratic authoritarianism dressed in helpful design. But Goethe, I think, does offer an exit. Where one still seeks meaning, we may reclaim perception. For experience alone is real. Measurement embalms the living world into a sterile fact. Solidity is not salvation, but stasis, unless doubt once again becomes the cornerstone of conviction. Our technological faith has turned abstraction into gospel, but even madness may be more sincere than the manicured fictions that we're creating. Thus, we return to Goethe, not for nostalgia, but for survival. To doubt well is to hope wisely. Goethe never denied human fallibility. He embraced it, transmuting it into vision. He saw the universal and the particular, heavens glinting in puddles, like harmonies whispered from the forge. Yet the more enthralled we become by Lord Mammon's measures, the further we drift from a viable spirit that is, in fact, earthly. Faust presents a path out of this blind spot. Weltgestalt, the sky under which a species encounters the world, currently mistakes our partial little slice of reality for the whole. UX is an accomplice, and psychology is even backing it up. It's psychology is applied to it, seducing us into little curated micro worlds. Algorithmic hands, disembodied, amoral, guide action within human precision, indifferent to consequence. Goethe dares us to see, to redesign perception itself, and to redesign the interface of the world. Ecological honesty replaces perfect simulation. We must trade fictionless conveniences for survivable reality. That's a terrible line, I apologize. In Goethe's work lies not aesthetic leisure, but an ethical demand. In the end, Goethe teaches this. Eternal harmonies resound most truthfully through the flawed. the particular, the broken, the transient. These are the bearers of the real. Truth whispers from nature through the imperfect soul that dares to listen. And I think I didn't mean to name drop it. I think the names there, these over the last 2,400 years, I think there's been a consistency. That's why I don't agree with Spengler, by the way. I think that we're in that same system. And you have, for those who can listen, like Pythagoras, walking next to the ardor of a blacksmith, basically realizes that you can declare the entirety of the heavens in the perturbations of a glass of water. Okay, and not in a Laplacian way, but in a Leibnizian way, mondological way, mondologically way. And now I'm going to end. I get off this hot seat. I'm going to end with just an example of where I think Faust is, just one little example where it's mind blowing among many things about modernity and where it's going and what's happening. I'm using the translation that was Stuart Atkins' actually favorite translation until he did his own translation, which is the Bear Taylor translation. And just a couple of lines here. This is in Walpurga Night, and it's line 39. I think it starts with 39:15. How strangely glimmers through the hollows a feeble glow, like that of dawn, and yet its flashing tracks and follows the deepest gorges, faint and wan. Here steam, there rolling smoke is sweeping. Here shines a flame through the film of haze. Now like a tender thread 'tis creeping. Now like a fountain leaps and plays. The winds away to form 100 veins that traverse the valley's plain. While here in corner pressed and surrendered and sundered, it becomes a single strand again. Close by gush sparkles incandescent, like scattered showers of gold sands. And see, in all its height, at present, the rocky rampart blazing stands. And then Mephisto answers very shortly, has not Sir Mammon gladly lighted his palace for this festival night? 'Tis lucky thou hast seen the sight, for boisterous guests approach that are invited. And that's where I'll end.
It's more than publishable.
Before, so.
What? No. This is very good. I mean, this accelerationists don't have to worry. Truth is not data, it is encounter. So there's lots in there that's more than quotable. Very good. Any questions for Marion, please?
Hopefully it made sense.
Laura.
Yes, my question for you is, I picked up the thread, I think, of what you were talking about, object permanence, and then you went experience alone is real, etc. So are you actually talking about, because are you trying to say that motion is real, that's the only real thing, that movement is real, in which case you're actually really talking about time, aren't you? Because you're talking about change over time.
Yes. Yeah. So this is from Goethe. Morphology is real. And this is what Hegel basically stole, I guess. Well, I mean, that's what I'm realizing. Look, I have to admit, I read Goethe way too early in life, and I totally was ruined on the man. I really thought he was a minor. What it really was is he's humble, and he's generous, and he's sensitive. Because who the hell takes 60 years to write something and doesn't even publish it during the lifetime to get credit for it? And also, he doesn't get credit for creating Hegel, basically. I mean, he creates that man. I don't know. That's the way I'm seeing it now. But anyway, your question. So that comes from Goethe. Goethe's morphology and movement, philosopherian, as the doctor has put it, which maybe perhaps Goethe had put it that way. I don't know. These are These are his concepts, and it's what it is that, and really Spengler, who is also a child of Goethe, but explicitly says he's a child of Goethe, realizes this split, this very true and very real split. And one is apathy, is atrophy, is dying off, and we're the last vestiges of that. Us coming together to do this. The reason that I think we're here, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but at least the reason I'm here, is that these works have something much more important going on than, some go to X archive or whatever, archive X or whatever the hell it's called, and go there and look at somebody's paper where they had to do a follow the method and tell you, and they have to qualify everything, and you get nothing. You get nothing that you can take and actually be able to understand this world. I think, and one of them is that, you take. I love Robert Brandon, but this is Robert Brandon's a spirit of trust. I think he does it on purpose. I think he's saying, basically talking about a spirit of trust because he knows that the opposite, the opposing distrust is what is what comes alive in that. But the solidity of this book, for instance, is something that is contingent on our relation. You may already know this, because my hand's not made of plasma, for instance, it doesn't go through the book. I wouldn't see this as solid if I were made of a plasmic hand. I guess you might say. It's a terrible way to put it, but it's not really solid. It's only solid for us. So for me, it's temporary. So yes, movement is where it's at. It's not but what's pernicious about this object permanence is there's nothing wrong with that. And Plato's the one who hit it on first, of course. But what's pernicious about it is that we're threatened by it now, because it's you see, AI is going to perfect this illusion. It's going to perfect the cave, the shadows in the cave. It's going to be absolutely perfect, and it will be rupture, boom, explosion. I'm sorry to say, if we don't do what we're doing here, what the Doctor is actually doing in founding the Academy, I think. Anyway, does that sound crazy?
Well,
in a good way, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you that AI has inherent dangers. I'm just going back to the object permanence thing. So, what is the suggestion that we do with that? If everything's constantly changing, how do we relate to that? What's your suggestion on that?
Sure, and just this. So, engaging in these, insight. So where do I start? So I come from a lot of. I was a devout atheist by age 11. I was a technician, a computer technician, probably networking. I have a very technical. I was in love with technology, and I put everything into it, and I really thought that's where it was at. I mean, it's not. So now you have the thing that's popular, and for instance, right now is this embodied cognition. And what they'll tell you is that 95% of they actually call it unconscious cognition. And so they're just trying to kill it off, and they're not. It's not something done on purpose. There's not a purposeful. It's not ignorance. It's not even ideology. It's that we can't see it. So we can't see it because we're tied to affordance. And so if one thing that I might refer to is like affordance theory by James Gibson. So because of the way in which we actually perceive the world, in which it requires that there's solidity, for instance, or that there's that there's water nearby, that a river supplies me, water. And Heidegger hits on this too. James Gibson probably got it from Heidegger, but it's this thing where the objectivity of objects is now it was a quaint deception before, where it was just like, what, yeah, the shadows on the cave wall, the forms are the everything. Idealism is what it is what's real. But now it's threatening us because we are. It's going to be adopted by this scientific gaze is going to be adopted by AI, and really it's already been in play for a long time, right? PR campaigns, the things that we buy and sell. I have a nice neighborhood, nice house, nice cars, but that doesn't help that doesn't prevent. Let's just put it this way: it's a disconnection from the earth spirit. To put it in the way that Faust was dealing with, that Goethe was dealing with. You're disconnected entirely from the earth spirit. It's entirely a false world. It's false affordance. It doesn't exist. That affordance is not real, in my view.
Well, I wonder with the fluidity of this thought, because really it's talking about continuity of all things, really, isn't it? That everything's moving and shaping and fluid. Whether that actually links with, the idea of letting go. So, actually which is the opposite of materialism, isn't it? Of consumerist societies, that actually we should be letting go. That's actually quite an ancient idea. But I wonder, just on the AI, and I have to say that perhaps Johannes can help here, because I don't understand. I missed the Hegel discussion that Wendy referred to in that last thing. And I have to say I've been grappling with Hegel's idea of self-consciousness, and I wonder, and so I don't fully grasp it, I don't fully understand it yet, whether that can actually speak to the technologists talking about AI having consciousness, that actually maybe Hegel can actually help there. I don't know what you think about that.
We don't even need Hegel. I would say just this, what's incommensurable one shouldn't compare. it's the brain is not a machine. That already is incommensurable. And then I mean, it's it's not necessarily a sign of stupidity, but let me just say of ignorance to start and compare a brain to a computer, and also to reduce the human being to a brain. There's no brain without your gut. If you have, let's just be honest, I push. I mean, if you remember, I said this is a disembodied experience, but of course it isn't. In some degree, it is, because we're just blips on a screen here. But I'm sitting here, and I'm thirsty, and my wine's run out, and also we have to get up tomorrow. I don't, but you have to, and it's late, or it's early morning, or whatever it is. So it's not disembodied. And if you have a headache, yeah, that's your brain. Then maybe you can't think as well. But if for some reason you've got gut problems, you can't think that well either. And Nietzsche actually says this: the gut is its own brain. So what's incommensurable, one shouldn't compare. That's the first step. Now, to come to Hegel, well, the phenomenology of spirit, Selbstbewusstsein, in this regard, I think shows us is how almost even so here in this sense, self-consciousness gets to know itself, which is itself a historical process. It's never, so it can become perhaps for Hegel transparent to itself, but it is always of a time, and also always has to be embodied, and is ethical, and hence that has to do with living with others, etc. So what we have with AI is the assumption that all can be broken down to computation, everything is propositional, and it's pure information. So the assumption is, once you have all the data of possible road accidents, as those of self-driving cars, there will never be another accident ever again. Which is, in some weird sense, an attempt to generate timelessness. So they're actually doing the exact, so it's actually not trying to liquefy, but it's the exact opposite. It's trying to generate that's how I understand it. It's a timeless, non-dynamic, end of history state. It's precisely the opposite of what perhaps some of them are trying to officially achieve. But yeah. And ultimately, of course, it's really about replacing the human being, because human being is flawed, and that the flaw of the human being is not allowed.
The only source of existence.
And there's something else that you said was very important, which you mentioned. You mentioned Spengler, and I also think that there's a continuation that Spengler doesn't want to see, which is crucial. That there's a continuation of gods fighting each other, which is to say, different ways of understanding what it means to be. And Spengler is very clear. No, this is just Apollonian. This is just Faustian. This is just Magian or magical. But I think that there's more of a continuation, at least from let's say Athens and Rome to Christianity, and the different gods, let's say, that compete or battle. But okay, so a very good essay, much longer than what you sent me.
Yeah, I try to do like a poem type deal.
Yeah, no, but this is a really good. So, and I think because you mentioned at the end that Goethe can show us a way out.